Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the States of America, which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. I'll now call the meeting to order. Mrs. Donaldson, roll call, please.
Deacon. Here. Fitzwater.
Present.
Hensley. Timna.
Here.
Lester.
Here.
Schreiber.
Present.
Spencer.
Here.
Spicer.
Present.
Ward. Here. Wiseman.
Present.
You can also join our meeting virtually. The link is on the agenda along with the call-in participation number, which can be all found on our website, jeffersoncitymo.gov. Item 3, is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 4, we have a couple of miscellaneous agenda items. And first, we have a special recognition. We would like to recognize Mr. Britt Smith, Public Works Operations Director, who was recently elected as the president of the National Society of Professional Engineers. So we'd like to welcome you to the podium along with Mr. Matt Marash, the department director, and do a recognition for you. So I'm going to read a little bit about this position, and then we'd like to hear from you to tell us about this and how proud we are to have you serving in this role. On July 1st, 2022, Britt Smith assumed the role of president of the National Society of Professional Engineers, where he will assist and provide leadership and direction for the national organization, as well as all 53 state and territorial partnership organizations. The National Society of Professional Engineers, NSPE, was established in 1934 to realize a simple but vital goal: create an inclusive, non-technical organization dedicated to the interest of licensed professional engineers, regardless of practice area. NSPE continues today by working towards reaching their stated vision of a world where the public can be confident that engineering decisions affecting their lives are made by qualified and ethically accountable professionals. Britt joined NSPE in 1998 and has held various positions at the local, state, and national level, including president of the Jefferson City chapter in 2001 and state president of NSPE Missouri in 2012. Britt was also named a fellow of NSPE in 2016. So things like ethically and accountable professional perfectly describes you, Britt, and we are honored to have you not only lead the local and state organizations, but now to assume the presidency at the national level. So congratulations.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. And very humbled to be, recognized in this way. NSPE is an organization, obviously, I've been very passionate about for many, many years, basically because I'm passionate about the profession of engineering. Unlike normally, I guess I can say 11 of you sitting here, most people do not know, nor do they ever have any clue as to the engineer that designed the bridge that they cross every day, or the water system that they get water from, or the wastewater system, et cetera, et cetera. Engineers do our best work when no one knows what we're doing. And you want to turn on the lights and the lights come on. That's what our job is. To do that, we have to be very accountable to ourselves, to our profession, and to the public, and keeping the best interest of the public's health, safety, and welfare foremost in all our decisions. So that's what NSPE members do, and I'm very proud and humbled to be a small part of that leadership. I've been fortunate the last 2 years to be part of the executive committee as I was vice president, then president-elect, preparing me for my year as presidency, and very excited for the year to come, and thank you for the opportunity to talk a little bit about it.
Well, we're happy to have you in this role, and we're very proud of you. To lead the national organization is a really big deal. So good for you and for representing Jefferson City as well as you do. And it just takes it to the next level, your performance level here as well. So thank you for that. And I know we have Mr. Marash here too, and we both kind of made the request at the same time to have you come here to the council meeting. So it wasn't only council-led, it was also something that Mr. Marash had wanted to. So I'll let him speak. But before I do, I don't want to forget, you have someone in the audience with you as well if you want to make an introduction.
Right. The most important person in my life is in the audience, my wife, Candy.
Hi, Candy. Thank you for being here as well and for your support. So, and with that, Mr. Marash, would you like to make any comments?
Mayor, for recognizing Britt, and we really appreciate it. Britt's an integral part of our staff, and this is a big honor nationally, and so I just want to make sure we recognize it.
Well, we're very happy and proud of you. And does council have any questions of Britt in his new role as national president? So, well, keep making us look good there for all that you do. With that, we'll get a photograph with you and the council members. So congratulations again.
All right. Got it.
Item B, we have a recognition of the passage of House Bill 1606 pertaining to Heritage Clause. So I will have Mr. Molman, who really spearheaded this effort, tell us a little bit about it. And in the meantime, I'd like to invite Sherry Doctorian to the podium as well. Sherry is, as you know, she is the city's lobbyist and has made substantial efforts to see this bill through. So Mr. Molman, give us a quick rundown of House Bill 1606 and why that is important to.
Sure. So, as part of the East Capitol project, part of my job is to find stumbling blocks and try to anticipate things. And one stumbling block that I saw was a provision in state law as it relates to condemnation, and it's heritage value. And heritage value is a very commendable piece of legislation that it's intended to provide extra value to property owners that have owned their property for over 50 years and been in the family for 50 years. And so many of the properties up in the East Capitol Avenue potentially could qualify for heritage value. And the thought is that when a property has been owned by a piece of by the same family has been taken care of and loved, that is evident in the property. And that heritage value is appropriate and probably a good piece of public policy. But in a situation where the building is abandoned and neglected, we didn't think it particularly just or equitable to provide extra compensation to a property owner that hasn't been taking care of the building and has allowed the property to become a blight and a nuisance in the neighborhood. And so we drafted up some legislation to address that situation and to allow condemning governmental bodies to apply to a court for the exception of heritage value for properties that have been abandoned or neglected or have fallen into disrepair. And so we drafted up some legislation, had some great support from our local legislature delegation. And it kind of took off from there. And really a lot of that can be attributed to Sherry and her good work in the state capitol and what she does for the city of Jefferson and what we're trying to accomplish. So it got attached. It spent most of its life in the General Assembly as its own bill, but got attached to another piece of legislation dealing with political subdivisions. I believe on the very last day of the legislature, and are very close there too, and got passed. The mayor and I testified up at the General Assembly on behalf of this bill and kind of explained the practical effects of the bill and what it would do for cities and the public in large. And I don't think we ever heard a real acknowledgement that this was problematic, and I think there was a large understanding that this would ultimately a good piece of public policy that should be enshrined in the law, and the the legislative machinations happened and it got approved. And so, want to thank the mayor and Sherry for her good work and really our local state legislature delegation who really carried a lot of the heavy water on this project. Getting anything passed is particularly hard and in challenging years, it's even harder. And I would say this is probably one of those challenging years. So Sherry, anything to add?
Not really. I think you did a great job explaining it. I would just give a shout out to Senator Bernsketter, who carried the bill and made sure that it got attached to another bill that came along that it would work on, and to Representative Griffith, who did his part in the House to make sure that every opportunity we could move it forward. So it was definitely a team effort. But I would say that on Thursday before the session ended, if you would have asked me if it was going to pass, I would have said no. But you can never give up. You have to keep trying. And by the end of the day, we had it passed and then the governor signed it. So I'm very thankful to the leadership of Ryan helping with the drafting and to you, Mayor, both of you for coming and testifying because that was really helpful.
Well,
Thank
thank
you.
you, Mrs. Doctorian, for keeping it on the radar and being very persistent with this bill, because this bill saves resources and money for the taxpayers, specifically here in Jefferson City. As we're looking at certain properties on Capitol Avenue, it would have been a huge roadblock to overcome had we had to pay more for these dilapidated properties. And I'm sure that was never the original intent when they initially passed heritage value, that it would be potentially used for blighted properties. So I'm thrilled that we were able to get this passed and make this correction. At the beginning, when we were talking about Capitol Avenue recently and realized Heritage Clause affected some of the properties, it almost seemed insurmountable because it was not under our control as a council, as a city. It was under a state law. So to get something like that passed and changed in such a timely manner is definitely a great victory for the city and this property and taxpayers. So thank you all for your support. Does council have any questions? So it's pretty exciting when we get a bill signed. So I do have a copy of the bill. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilwoman Ward.
Thank you for your work on this. I did read through this bill over the weekend, and there is some other information pertaining to maybe our police department, how it would affect them and how they patrol our, being responsible for removing homeless on city-owned property, our state-owned property and state streets and under bridges. And municipalities can be sued by the AG if the police departments aren't doing that. So I was just wondering how that's going to affect our police department and, workload, personnel. It was lines 52 through 72 that of that bill. So sorry, it doesn't pertain to why you're up there, but I just wanted to mention it since we brought up the bill. And
Yeah, so like I mentioned, so our little piece of legislation got appended to a larger bill, omnibus bill. Haven't finished kind of digging out, aware of that provision. I don't think we've had the opportunity with the police department to kind of line up exactly what that's going to look like, but that's in the hopper. Yeah.
Councilman Spencer?
Thank you as well to get this bill passed. I guess I would like to just echo on the radar screen of giving more tools to municipalities for our building codes and regulations for nuisance properties and those kinds of things. I know it's a fine balance for property rights and those kinds of issues, but as we face a lot of our citizens, their biggest asset that they have is their home. And when there's homes that are not being taken care of, that are continually being called into not being in compliance with city codes, hopefully there's something that we can come to address that.
If I could, so I sit on the resolutions committee for the Missouri Municipal League, which essentially its job is to help write the policy directives for the municipal league for the upcoming year. One of the main areas of focus and areas of focus that I've been specifically asked to address is that exact topic, is dealing with nuisance properties and trying to get some more tools for municipalities through the leadership of the municipal league. So it is not a problem that is unique to Jefferson City. A lot of cities are facing the same problems, and so we're looking for solutions and trying to find some legislative support through that body specifically. So that's something I'm working on here in the next month or two. Thank you.
Any other questions? And when I was in the governor's office last week, when he signed this bill, something else that did come up was the legislators from St. Louis said how it would greatly also affect their properties there with heritage values. So it was good to hear about other areas of the state. It's not just us on this particular item. And also something that came up in the governor's office from legislators was the fact that our police officers and firefighters, our public safety personnel are put at risk when they are having to deal with some of these properties. So this is just another tool that we can do something different and get them out of the hands of property owners that have allowed them to get in that state as well. So with that, I have the bill, a copy of the bill for Mr. Molman for all his efforts in making this happen, and the pen that the governor used to sign it. So we would invite Sherry and Mr. Molman up here to get a picture with council. And since you're our photographer, I don't know who's going to take the picture. Might have to be a selfie. Item 5, we now have the ARPA discussions. So to begin, I would call, we have a couple of people who have signed up to speak tonight. Mr. Alan Mudd on behalf of the Salvation Army. Welcome.
Mayor, I appreciate the opportunity to speak on this issue. As you recall, the last hearing, Greg White presented a proposal to the city asking for $3.5 million in conjunction with the county money. I don't know whether either of those would work out, but since that time, we have reached a situation which I think could be called a crisis. The shelter has 7 air conditioners, 6 of which have quit. And the director just told me that they got 2 of them patched up. But it's a difficult situation when you have a cooling center and you don't have the ability to cool it. And you have a shelter with 31 people there and you don't have air conditioners to cool it. So it's a situation that I think anyone with the weather the way it's been the last few days and the forecast for the next week or two can appreciate it. It's a crisis, and there's a lot of challenges in helping the homeless. The governor signed a bill, which I'm sure you've read, and so it's going to be a lot more serious down the road. I think as a community, we're going to have to each put our shoulders to the wheel to try to make some changes and try to meet the needs of the homeless. And in fact, a week from tonight, the board of the Salvation Army is going to meet with the board of United Way and probably the homeless task force to talk about the need for a homeless daycare center where it's safe for them to be. It's kind of mind-boggling to think of the challenges that would incur. So right now, we would appreciate any help that the city can give us in terms of getting air conditioners working so that we can provide a cool environment for our homeless. We've got 31 individuals there, and it's been full. And I'll let the director, Brian, tell you the challenges he has virtually every single day with individuals calling to plead for shelter, some of which are mothers with children. We have no family units within the shelter. So the air conditioning is the most immediate crisis. It's by far not the only crisis that we're trying to deal with within the Salvation Army. So if there are any questions, be happy to try to answer those.
Thank you. Councilman Schreiber?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mudd, do you have any estimates of what the air conditioner is going to cost to get them replaced, repaired?
Well, I just recently been appointed to the property committee. Brian can probably answer that better. I know that the main unit for the kitchen and the cafeteria, the building was built around the interior unit. I don't know how you would get that replaced. I think the exterior unit and those are two, and they're extremely large. So I'm sure 100,000 would do it. Whether you could do it for 60 or 80, I don't know. But I know that some of the units that were placed there are undersized, and they were placed there temporarily. And I don't know how many years that's been, but temporarily became permanent. So Brian may have more information. I know it's not easy to get replacements for those units. There's a time lag, I know from personal experience, but it's not going to be cheap. I think it's going to be rather expensive, and any help that the city could give us would be much appreciated.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you for
Mhm.
the comments. Next, we have Mr. Brian Vogler. Welcome.
you, Mayor and City Council. My name is Brian Vogler. I'm the director for Center of Hope. Center of Hope is the shelter, pantry, feeding area. How many people have been to the Center of Hope? Okay, here's your invitation. I personally invite you all to come out and check it out. I've been there a little over 5 years. This year is exciting. The Salvation Army's been vested in this community for 100 years this year. And over 80 of those years, we've had an active homeless shelter. And so for the last 100 years, through floods, fires, tornadoes, COVID, we have served this community. And we're not going to stop serving this community, but I just want to tell you a little bit about our shelter. It was built in 1999. Alan alluded to our air conditioning systems. Several of those are from 1998. I was in high school in 1998. I have a senior who's getting ready to graduate high school. So if that gives you a perspective on how old this equipment is, it's hot in there. Every day I sweat, and I'm a big guy, and it's bad. And I know our people, they feel it too, because they come in to cool off and it's not there. And that's just one of the things, unfortunately, it's been neglected around there because the funds haven't been available to get those updated. The Center of Hope has served over 800,000 free meals in this community since it was made. Over 650,000 bed nights. That means somebody had a safe place to stay that night since that center was built. I could go over all the statistics and everything with you, but I want to talk about something that happened about an hour and a half ago. I got a call from a young lady. She's a mother of a special needs child. She's being evicted next week. Our shelter's full. I have 2 family rooms that are currently occupied. I have 6 children that live in my shelter right now. I didn't know what to tell her. I told her, I'm going to go to this meeting tonight and we're going to see what happens. I also got a phone call Friday morning, a mother of 5. She's been evicted. I don't know what to tell them. I tell them, hey, you can come here and we'll put you on a cot and make sure you have a safe place to stay. But I don't know what else we can do because there's occupancy limits and there's things like this. And we can't just, pile a bunch of people into the rooms. But these are the questions I get every day. And it's hard. When you're talking to a mom and she's crying and she wants to know what she can do with her family. And the only thing I can do is comfort them and tell them, we will give you a temporary place. So that way you have a safe place for you and your children, and we'll work really hard to find something for you. And we'll have our caseworkers work with you to make sure we can get you placed as soon as possible. But this is why we're asking for the expansion, for the ARPA money. With this money, we can put in 5 more family rooms that will house up to 25 more people. These family rooms are designed basically like a motel. They'll have their own bathroom and they'll have a sleeping area. They'll also have a little kitchenette. So, if they do have a young one and the young one needs a bottle, they have a place to put that. They have those things there. And this is very important because with these new laws coming down and the eviction rates, I don't see this coming to an end anytime soon. I have plans that are sitting in our office right now that are done. The architects have been there. We already have the plans. We were ready to go. And so that's why we're here today. And I was thinking about this, and this Sunday I was at church, and the pastor read a verse in the Bible, and I'm going to read this for you. And I'm going to read out of the Message. It says this, out of the Gospel of Matthew. It says, when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was thirsty, you gave me a drink. When I was homeless, you gave me a room. When I was shivering, you gave me clothes. When I was sick, you stopped and visited me. When I was in prison, you came to me. Whatever you did to one of these that are overlooked and ignored, you did to me. And for 100 years, the Salvation Army have been fighting for people like that, and we were going to continue to fight. But now we ask that the city come along with us and help us fight today. And so tonight, when you go to bed, I want to ask you this question. What would you say to that mom who calls you, who's crying, who says, I don't have anywhere to go? What would you say? The mom whose 5 children says, I have no place to go. And hopefully we can give them a good answer. But does anybody have any questions or anything?
Is there any questions? Councilman Fitzwater?
Yeah, just to clarify, your comments, does it relate to the air conditioner comments before or to the facility request that was made?
All of. Because with what we've asked for is $3.5 million. And when we ask for that, that is to remodel, add these rooms, and what we would do is we would move our pantry from upstairs to downstairs in our basement, and our pantry area would become our family area. And it would have an area for the kids to play. It would also have an area because when a child is young going through homelessness, there's a lot of trauma. So we'd actually have an office too and a place that they can meet with child therapist. A lot of states have laws that actually deal with child trauma and homelessness, but that's something that we're looking at also. But it would also include a complete refab, basically update of our facilities. So that includes also our air conditioning systems would be completely updated. Our fire suppression system, which is not in great shape either, it would be completely updated. And it would give us our flooring throughout. It's old tile. We'd have all that updated. So it's not only just adding these rooms, but it's updating this shelter so it can go another 25, 30, 40 years. The exterior of our building is it's brick. It's very nice. It's just the interior. This also includes updating of some of our restrooms and our bathrooms to make them cleaner, more COVID friendly. And so that's what all of that encompasses. We've added everything in there for that.
What's the annual budget for the center?
was the annual budget for the center? And unfortunately, with inflation and things like that, it's climbing.
Who would you say is your largest supporter at this point? Is it United Way?
Yeah, United Way, Thrift Store, the Red Kettle campaign, that is our big income sources at this time.
Okay, so you're looking for an investment about 4.5 times your annual budget right now?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councilman Spencer?
Have you fostered any partnerships with the faith-based community here in Jefferson City with other churches and?
Yeah, church there tonight. That was, they came in and they fed our residents and the community. This past weekend, 4th of July weekend, we had a local church come in and they barbecued and they had games and activities for everybody. Yeah, so we partner with probably about 40 different churches. And a lot of those churches, they support us. They
Financially?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do, yeah, we get a lot of support from them. Also, they do a lot of fundraisers for our pantries, can drives, food drives, things like that.
Any other questions? Okay, well, as we have the discussion, if council has anything further, we could call you to the podium. And I know you have some others that are here from your board. I don't know if they want to just raise their hands so you know who's here from Salvation Army as well. So, okay. Okay, thank you all for being here as well. Any further questions? So we'll take up under item 5, Councilwoman Ward.
And it was a 3.5 million ask, but that was in conjunction with Cole County, correct? So have you heard of
We might have you come to the podium because we can't hear, won't be able to hear the rest of that. Thank you for coming forward. And if you could just state your name for the record, please. Thank you.
Teacher Sarah Wendell. So we have put in an application to Cole County. The application is due actually July 8th or 11th. So it is sent and processed. So we are just waiting for their process to go through as to how much they're willing to give us.
Any other questions?
I serve on the advisory board for the county as well. And the commissioners will make that decision. The advisory board will make recommendations, but the 3 commissioners will make that decision. They have more money to spend than the city, obviously. And they also have we have more requests and larger requests. It's probably a situation with the Salvation Army where it's going to have to be done in steps. Right now, the crisis, the wolf at the door is the air conditioning. Beyond that, there's many other needs, but, you know, I have some clue as to the budget that the city is dealing with. So we appreciate any help that we can get that will help us through that hurdle. And then we'll go on to the next hurdle and strive to build donors within the community, churches and others as well. I've talked to several people and there's interest in donating, but it's quite a bit of money. It sounds like quite a bit of money to me, and it probably does to you as well, but there's a lot to be done. So it can be justified in terms of the cost of renovating the building and adding family units and adding case manager offices and so forth.
Thank you. All right. With that, we'll have some ARPA funds discussion, item 5. And I don't know if we have the framework, the Excel spreadsheet to put on the big screen. We do have paper copies here for everyone. And this was presented at the last city council meeting. And we've had, at several of our past city council meetings for the last couple of months, there's been some opportunities for organizations to come and speak about ARPA. So you have the list in front of you, and it's a draft outline of a few items. And so this evening, there can be some discussion about it. It can be preliminary discussion still. There may be some items on the list that would be acted on. There could be some that may require more time, as we saw tonight with other requests that were brought to us before, or unfunded, or other requests that may be on the list that could be modified. So with that, I would like to ask Mr. Kroll if he has anything to add before we open up this discussion.
I do not.
And I know we also have our Councilman Hensley on the line too, who led our previous discussions. Did I see a hand over here? Did somebody have a hand up? No. Oh, Councilman.
I was just curious, where are we with our discussions with sharing funds with the county?
The county has an application process.
No, I mean the city and the county joining forces.
Sure, and we have applied for a few items that we have made requests for, so we've had to go through the application process. Mr.
I mean, is
Kroll
there-
has, go ahead.
Madam, I don't think you understand my question. Is there a committee from the city to meet with the county to discuss joining funds, sharing expenses?
On specific joint projects?
No, the entire ARPA money.
No, they have a different process, so they're doing an application process.
Why are we not talking with them? Share money, share expenses with these, whose decision was it to work with the county?
It's not that we necessarily have to work with them or not. We are working with the county. So the process that the county has outlined is a bit different from the cities. I've shared this with Councilman Hensley, so he may add here when I'm finished. Or did you have some more? Go ahead,
Yes,
Councilman. Sure.
Was the council aware that county commission asked the city to share expenses? That we have expenses to hand here, multiple hands coming from the same pot, that we could share all of this? And the impression was that the county, that the city did not want to work with the county, that the city had its own way of spending the money, and we've already spent it. If that's true, I'm shocked. They have $20 million. They wanted to help share it with us. We have 7. I mean, they've got 14, we've got 7, we've got 20, 21. So we've always gotten together. We are the lion's share of the county. That's where the population is. This isn't secondhand. I had long meetings this weekend with Sam Bushman to get my story straight. I just think it was just inexperience for not wanting to share the money. We could have parlayed our money with the different handouts and still had left over. And there's, and probably the worst, the secondary part was, we've lost connections. This city is unique. We have incredible connections that people come through here and they make national office. He came from Halsey's office, and they're just now putting all kinds of money. I don't know if I don't know if it's in the databases or not, or wherever you find your grants. But after the Texas shooting, they're dumping huge amounts of law enforcement money. They're buying body cameras. Sam said they're buying cars. He just informed Wheeler now. He said that right now he was able to find this out before everybody else did. Maybe at the same time. I don't think we were aware of it. We've cut our ties with the county, and I think it was just inexperience. But because if it was a deliberate effort, I almost think it was dereliction of duty to waste that much money. But I think we should get together with the county before all this money is spent, and spend it wisely. Spend it together. We could put in some. They put in some. Maybe they could have the money. Mr. Bud, we don't have the money. $3.5 million. We don't even have enough. We don't have any money. And I just find it a shame that we didn't work with the county. And I think we should have a committee that comes and tells the county, look, we were short-sighted and we need to work together. We're losing connections nationally. We're losing faith with the citizenry, and we lost a lot of money.
Is that it for the moment? Okay, I'll chime in here, and it is not correct that we're not working with the county. So I can assure you of that. And go ahead.
Do you want Sam to come here? Are you saying Sam Bushman told me wrong, that the city did not tell him that we don't want to work with you? We've already have it where I want to
Correct.
sit.
Correct.
Correct.
I did not ever tell Sam
didn't say
Bushman that
you
we didn't
did.
want to work
I
with him.
said-
I thought that's what you just said.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
I don't have a guilty conscience. I didn't say
Okay.
anybody
Let
did.
me know when you're finished and I can give you
Madam
mine.
Mayor, I have the floor, please. I just, that the city informed Sam that they did not want to work for him. I don't know who told him that. There was a number of different people said who it was, but I asked Sam again today. I said, I'm going to get my story straight. The city specifically said, no, we already have an outline where our money is going to spend, and we don't want to work with you on sharing our funds.
Okay, Councilman Deacon, and I don't need this kind of, he said and she said, we can certainly have Mr. Sam Bushman come here and he can be in front of us and we can have that discussion. And I've absolutely talked with Mr. Bushman about ARPA, and we have applied, just like everybody else, for certain funds that we have even requested. So it's a different process that the city and county are going through. The city process does not have an application process. The county does. It's a completely separate and different process. We have talked very clearly with wanting to partner with the county. So I can assure you that that is the plan, to partner with the county on some of these funds and work together. What was not contemplated and discussed, and a request that Mr. Bushman did make, is to have a joint meeting that we go through all of these requests that have already come to us. So in talking with Councilman Hensley, the decision was made that we've already had, all of these groups have already come to us. They hadn't yet come to the county. The county has a different process. So we talked about whether to have a joint meeting for more of the charity groups, not all of the items on the joint project list, simply for the charities, because a lot of these groups are making the same request to both the city and county. So we don't necessarily want to double up on them. So as we work through and say, these are items that are identified, of course, we'll be working with the county. We've already said we have an intent to have consideration with the county, having a joint meeting to have everybody come back to us that already came to us to give us their request and do it twice didn't make sense at the time. I know, talking with Councilman Hensley, that was the decision that was made, that we didn't need it twice. They have a different process than we do. They have an application process. And like I said, in fact, we as a city have even gone through their application process. Mr. Kroll has submitted. It's not even like, let's just work together. There is a very formal county process, which is different from the way the city is processing. I take offense to the fact that you would say that I wouldn't be working, or the city wouldn't be working with the county. We absolutely have intentions to work with the county and partner with them on several of the items. We've made requests specifically to partner with the county to work together and furthering some of these projects that could be joint projects. We've made that request. It's an application form. We're getting our applications in before the deadline so that the city will also be considered for some of our requests. Councilman Deacon.
That's not the point. The point was that there was no coordination with all the services. Yes, maybe we had some paperwork done. We could save a lot of money if they would have kicked in on some of the charities, if you want to call them the charities. And there is a schism there. And I grew up in this, I know these people, know them well since they were young. There is a schism there, and they're not going to lie to me. And we're losing context because of it. I don't know how the city and the county became so separate. It's been a long time since.
I'll remind you,
Okay.
anymore? Okay, I'll remind you that this is a draft, by the way, so decisions have not been made. Some may be made tonight and maybe not. So with that, Councilman, Fitzwater, and then Councilwoman Wiseman.
I'm not sure I can answer the question. I try to bring some context to it. Councilman, we've had discussions with members of the committee. I think what we tried to do, we were approached by groups, we were approached by individual commissioners, we were approached in different formats, and at least what I tried to do, I'm not going to speak for the other 9 members of council, but for example, our stormwater, we addressed that issue long before we even talked to the county. That was an issue that we needed to do in the 22 budget. Councilman Hensley has taken the lead in trying to define some dollars for central worker payment, I guess the term we use. The county did the same thing, but we don't have the same employees. So for us to have that discussion, but I think Councilman Hensley took the lead in saying county has made this available. They did it in a different format. So, I mean, we had discussions there. Fire radios, police radios, I think Councilman Schreiber can tell you, we've had a lot of discussion at Public Safety Committee with all the parties involved, and we've got the two chiefs here who have been very involved in that and trying to make sure that whatever we do as a city doesn't conflict with what the county is doing and what Highway Patrol and others. The Lincoln project, I mean, Lincoln came to each of us individually, but I mean, we certainly talked to the county to kind of get their perspective, and we have made a recommendation as to what we think is appropriate for the city. Again, that was discussions with the county. It wasn't done in a formal sit-down meeting. The Hyde Park burn, that's a recommendation. I mean, we're gonna have to decide on that, but there's some things on this list that come out of the list that Mr. Kroll presented to us that don't really impact the county. Now, you can say those dollars shouldn't be spent there. We need to put them back in the pool. Then maybe we go back to the county and say, we've got additional funding. But in talking to, again, our public safety, and now with the joint agreements they have with Lincoln looking at some moving into fire, there may be some opportunities that we as a community can really utilize for this facility in areas where we have not been able to do in the past. We had some we had a lot of requests that, again, didn't really overlap. So at least from my perspective, I'm only talking from one, but I know some of our colleagues have talked to the county. It is accurate. We did not have a set down meeting. I don't know whether that was appropriate or not, but we tried to take specific projects and at least put something on paper saying county has an interest in this. We have an interest. How can we do as much as we can? I mean, I'd love to give Lincoln a lot more money, but we've only got $7.5 million to spread among $40 million in requests and additional requests. So yeah, I think the intent was to always work with the county. And again, I tried to outline some of those areas where we've done it. Some have been done through committees. Some have been done through individual discussions. Some have been with individuals coming to us and going to the county. So I think we've made a good attempt effort to try to overlap with county priority projects. And as the mayor indicated, they've got a much different process than us. We decided we were not going to spend the dollars to hire a company to come in and help us decide how to spend money, because that's money that we can invest in the community. And we also decided that the 10 of us were going to kind of decide how we were going to invest our dollars in the community after talking to the community, after talking to staff and, trying to get a handle. So I'm part of the problem if you're saying that we should have sat down, because I thought we were doing a lot of discussions informally, but certainly focused on this document. And I think all three commissioners well too. None have come to me and said, they come and say we ought to be working on a whole host of projects, and I think that's appropriate. But as far as the expending of, or the proposal to expend ARPA funds, I feel very comfortable that we've overlapped where it's appropriate. We brought our professionals in where it's appropriate, and I feel very comfortable arguing most of what's on this list. I've got one or two changes. I know Councilman Schreiber came to us with a request for the Convention and Visitors Bureau. I'd like to see us shoehorn that into this proposal, but I feel very comfortable that we're working with our county partners. And the only project that I'm aware of that they really were focused on that we didn't really talk a lot, because there hasn't been a lot and it's more of a county project, is that multimodal project that they have on the east side, which again, I think is good for our community. But didn't really fit into some of the discussions. So I feel very comfortable where we are at this point, that we've tried to bring as many people in as possible. And
Councilwoman, okay, thank you. Wiseman and
okay?
then Deacon.
Thank you. So we've had a couple discussions on this, and I see that tonight we have the $2,500 per employee as Bill 29, 2022-29. Is is that how we need to appropriately address all of these items? I guess this is for Counselor Molman. Is that how we need to appropriately address all these items, is put them in a bill? Or do we just vote on them until we run out of money?
So, from a budget processing standpoint, anytime that the city council wants to spend out of the fund, there will need to be a corresponding budget action to do that. So it's kind of what I was addressing last week is you can approve certain projects. But the practical effect is that we have no way of approving of paying for any approved project until the money has been appropriated. So for any one of these projects, you could do it where you approve a project and the corresponding budget processing, or you could approve projects and then we could approve the budget as the projects come up. You can kind of do it either way, but for anything, you know, to move that money out of the current ARPA fund and into a project, there will have to be some sort of budget ordinance, because budgets can only be amended by ordinance. So
Okay, so just to be clear, we can't just say, here's our list, we vote on this today as budget item number 5.
you absolutely can, but there would have to be follow-up in order to amend the budget to then reflect that authorization.
Okay, fair enough.
So you have to have, anyone that's familiar with the state budgeting process, you have to have both budgeting authority and spending authority. And so you could have passed the spending authority, but you have to follow it up with the budget authority as well, because otherwise you can't spend the money to carry out what you've approved.
Okay, great. So in addition to that, so I note that we have $194,000 that's uncommitted from phase 1, but also in phase 2, we have some reimbursements that we anticipate getting back. I'd like to include the downtown improvements. I talked about those earlier, and we can talk about those a little bit more later, but as an earmark, I think as part of the earmark for the reimbursements, I think that'd be best. That was a $300,000 cost, but it would be only $150,000 if that amount was raised. And so I think that would be appropriate for a reimbursement, mostly because I think an organization would have to raise money to do that. So if they raised $0, we would pay $0 out, and we'd give them a timeline to do that. And I just think that'd be better placed on the reimbursement side instead of the right now side.
So would we want a motion to add these items, or just add the requests and then go through them all later, probably? Because I'm trying to remember if when we accepted this, I don't think we accepted it by motion. I'm trying to recall at the last meeting. Didn't we just accept this as a slate, as a draft? Correct? Okay, so then any requests could be added, for example, Councilwoman Wiseman's improvement item, and could be added to the spreadsheet, which I don't think we have on the screen, but we could, okay, we don't have that. Okay, but we can add it on. Then I had Councilman Deacon and then Spencer. Okay, Councilman Spencer?
Yes, I guess this is a question more for Steve and finance as well. What does our reserve fund balance look like as of today? And since we're so close to our budget process, are there any FY23 budget concerns that you have on your radar?
Yes, we have a guideline. Council has established a financial guideline of having a 17%. We are below that, and the budget that I proposed to the mayor has a number of about 10%. So we'll be 7% below that guideline. Although the mayor and I haven't had a chance to sit down and talk about the budget yet, but I anticipate using some fund balance to be able to balance the budget. So that's one concern. The second concern that, to address your question, I think is at the last meeting when you were talking about it, I mentioned that some of the costs were a year old, if not a little bit more. And so at that particular time, I was indicating that some of the, for example, the radios, we might have to dip into that second phase of funding for those. And the third thing I would mention is that for the city facilities, I don't know that those would necessarily be the highest priority for department directors, but they can certainly talk about that if you would like.
So follow up though, for FY '23, the big one that I have a concern with is the shortfall with transportation. Because we've used the CARES Act funding and that is no longer applicable
Yep.
for '23.
And that's what's causing some of the concern that I just referenced. Yeah, and from my point of view, it's certainly a valid concern to have.
I guess what I'm elated about is that a lot of us in a work session that I think the council had perception as a work session really came together and worked hard to come up with a very good compromise for a pay plan. And then I hear of these concerns with the reserve fund balance and FY '23 budget concerns as well. And we still have a salary study that we haven't received any information on that we paid for. And so I guess what I'm really concerned about is getting too far down the tracks of spending anything as it relates to ARPA funds until we really hammer out the budget process. And I think some other council members felt that way too, but we didn't want to be a hindrance of at least having an in-depth discussion of maybe working out in spirit a pay plan for our staff. And, I'm just really concerned about next year's budget. And these ARPA funds are one-time dollars. And we have, to a little bit of Councilman Deacon's concern, is that we have one shot to really get this right. And I really appreciate Councilman Hensley and Councilman Fitzwater's efforts in this and the rest of the council as well. And I'm not pointing any fingers because I'm guilty of it as well. I should have asked these questions, especially as it relates to reserve fund balance. I know we had a discussion at one of after our public safety meeting about it as well, but I didn't force the issue, and shame on me. But I'm really concerned about where we go from here, especially in light of what information we've got out there to come before us: salary study and the budget of FY '23 budget process. So, thank you.
Any other questions, discussion? Councilman Lester?
So one of the things that I've always thought we should do with some of the ARPA money is kind of pay it forward to do some investment that would save us some money in future budgets. And I really think putting solar on fire station number 2 would do that in terms of energy savings, and actually the return on investment should be pretty good. That I would think it would pay for itself in about the half-life of those solar panels. My understanding is that the cost of doing that would be about $94,000. But anyway, it would once we make the outlay, then future budgets we would save a little bit in energy cost. And the way energy is going, it's not going to be going down anytime soon.
So we've had another request for $94,000 to be added to the list. Councilman Hensley?
Great, thank you. I'll just address Councilman Deacon's points first. I don't believe I've had any direct communication from any member of the county commission about ARPA spending. I hear secondhand or third hand about what they want to do on certain things, and that's about it. I think there was one time when a message or an email maybe was relayed to me from a member of the commission about the item that the chamber has said they're going to get us a proposal on, and I still don't think we have that. Anyhow, I responded directly to the member of the county commission about what I anyway would suggest that they present in terms of information, and I don't believe I ever received a response from that member of the commission. Also, yeah, and I don't recall it ever being brought up, about sharing money. I don't believe I've heard any offer to give the city any control or share over the county's funding. As far as I've heard it, it was really limited to wanting to get together so that as a pair, the city and the county could decide how much total should go to certain community initiatives, making sure that combined we did not give more than, I don't know, someone thought should be granted, or allow these groups to double dip in some way. We weren't. It became clear pretty early, at least in the slate of, I think, really important city priorities that made it onto this list, that we weren't going to be able to propose fully funding these community groups. So a meeting on making sure that they didn't get too much, when it was shared with me second or third hand, that didn't seem like something that was really going to be worthwhile to pursue in the first place. So I'm not, I try not to get involved in too many games of telephone, but I really have absolutely no idea what you're talking about, Councilman Deacon. That's not any experience I've ever had with a member of the county commission. On the broader point of this ARPA proposal, I understand and largely join the frustration voiced by every group that wouldn't be getting everything that they asked for under our proposal. As we acknowledged at our last meeting, our ARPA funding share is a pretty small fraction of the valid spending requests that were presented to the council. But we still worked hard to present the most balanced approach that we could, and Councilman Fitzwater did a nice job a few moments ago, ticking through what's on this list. Again, everything on here I think is a city priority, and the vast majority of it is purely either city equipment, city staff, or city infrastructure. In any event, I'm not going to have any changes to suggest here to this. I know other folks will. I think that an awful lot of these things are high priority items that deserve our approval. And I think that tonight, after this discussion, the best thing that we can do is approve as many of them as we can to come back for formal spending authority through the ARPA funds. But so after discussion, I hope we can have the groundwork laid for that type of motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Hensley. Mr. Kroll has something to add.
I just wanted to follow up to Councilmember Spencer's comments. So I felt one reason I proposed the 5% piece was just because I felt we really needed to make sure we were being competitive with on salaries. So that was important then. But in the initial information that I sent you all 8 months ago or so. There were 12 areas of focus. Number one was essential worker pay, and number two was reimburse city lost or outstanding revenue. And then there were several after that. So those would still be pretty high priorities, I would think, in my mind.
Councilman Spencer?
We have just started the process of our organizational review of how government functions and how we provide services to our community. And we've got a lot of great citizens, and we're locked in with our committee. They're moving forward and really hitting the ground running. But it was suggested, and I'm in full agreement with those suggestions, is that it's time that we really start looking at making an investment in government and using these one-time funds at funding hopefully the bulk of that study and that assessment of hiring a vendor to come in and look at all policies and practices. And I'm just guessing, I have no real firm numbers on this, but I'm taking a shot in the dark here of saying that might be a couple $100,000. So, I really hate that, we have to play, picking winners and losers as far as, these nonprofit groups who offer valuable services to our community. But I think we really need to look at the removal of Special Learning Center, soccer complex, Habitat for Humanity. Habitat for Humanity is a great program, obviously, but the city does offer other ways to help that organization already through some of our processes in place that we do, and the Boys and Girls Club. So that would potentially put $400,000 back on the table. I think the $500,000 investment for Lincoln University is vital. I think that meets the spirit and the intent of the ARPA funds with Lincoln's commitment of training and equipping future nurses for our communities and other communities around the state. So I'm a firm believer in that program and wish we could do more. Obviously, we all understand that there's only so many dollars to go around. And again, I appreciate everyone's involvement in this process. It's not a critique in any way, shape, or form. It's just, a part of discussion of just making sure we can get it right. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Spencer. So up till now, we've simply been adding to the list. Now we've had a request to take some things off and some good points as to why those should be, so we can decide how that process should be done, whether we simply see if there's any objections to removing or if we take a more formal vote among council, depending on what the discussion leads to. So Councilman Schreiber.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Over the period of several months, when we've had various groups and organizations come before us, I don't think any of them have had requests that we would consider trivial. But as been stated here tonight by several people, we only have so much money to go around. And one of the things that we have to be concerned with, and that's why I asked for the Convention and Visitors Bureau to get their $175,000 that they were down over the period of the last couple of years because of events beyond their control. It's an organization, some of these different groups or organizations, and including the CVB, that bring money into our community. And we have to have money brought in so that we can fund other things and help other services within the community. And so that's why I'm asking for the $175,000 for the CVB, because as we know, in May, when the state track meet was here, due to their efforts, it brought in about $3 million just over a weekend to help the city of Jefferson so that we can do some of these other things. So, that puts heads in beds in our various hotels and motels. They eat at our restaurants and spend money in our community. So, I concur that some of the things on this list are I have no doubt that they're very valuable programs, but I think that probably some of them should be removed, and we've got to also remember that sometimes circumstances alter cases as well. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Schreiber. So we've had a request to add 175,000 for the CVB back in, which was also on Mr. Kroll's original list that he had submitted. Councilman Lester?
So I would just, there's a question, I guess, to Ms. Sinzi. Isn't the funds like for CVV eligible for state Department of Economic Development? At least 50%, or I think it's 100% for some of that. Is that correct or not?
They're planning on it. They're planning on a local tourism grant that is specifically for that purpose. But I haven't seen the guidelines, or we saw that very preliminary, this is the projects that we're thinking we're going to open. We just saw the community revitalization program come out where they're receiving public comment for it. But supposedly it's coming.
If we spend money from ours up front, can we get it back from the state, or no, we have to, okay. When do you expect to see the guidelines?
They're hoping to have the programs out by August. Last month it was July, so it's just everybody has capacity issues trying to enroll these programs. But that is they were 50-50, so it'd be a match component.
Councilman Spencer?
Just also maybe a suggestion, excuse me, of the essential worker payment. Maybe if we do that in 2 phases, possibly 1250 this year, and then the remainder at a determined time next year. That's just a suggestion and just open for discussion.
Councilman Fitzwater?
Yes.
I was just going to offer an amendment just to kind of formalize some of the discussions we've had. I agree with Councilman Spencer on 75%. I would like to argue leaving the soccer dollars in there. I think it's a economic asset for our community. And I mean, you raised some really good points. I think the other 3, again, as you indicated, are all worthy, but I mean, I think Councilman Hensley put it very well that what we tried to do is benefit city, benefit our staff, benefit equipment. And I think the soccer complex does benefit the city just because of its revenue. So my amendment is to strike the Special Learning Center, Habitat, and Boys and Girls Club, and to add a placeholder for the CVB. I think Ms. Senzi raises a good question. So as Councilman Lester indicated, not spending those dollars until we've been told no, but having a placeholder there. So $175,000 placeholder for that. And $150,000 placeholder for the Downtown Association, still leaving some funds for other projects, but trying to put a little bit more on the table. So that's my amendment.
I would like
Madam
to
Mayor.
second that amendment.
Okay, so we have a motion and second, and Councilman Hensley online.
Sorry, if I could just ask a couple questions. The 150 for the Downtown Association, is that for what Councilwoman Wiseman was mentioning a moment ago? For that project?
If the question is to me, yes.
Okay, and then.
But it would be a
what is-
matching, in my understanding, it'd be a matching.
Okay, and I'm wondering if we can split the question and put the cut question up first, and then have the additional uses question after the
So
question.
have the motion, maybe if they would change that to simply removing the 3 items that were proposed for removal. Is that what you're proposing, Councilman
Yeah.
Hensley?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that would just be,
I'm comfortable, yeah,
My-
I'm
my
comfortable
preference.
with that.
okay.
So I think they'll withdraw their motion in second, and maybe we can start that.
So my amendment would be that we strike those 3, the 100,000 for special learning center, 100,000 for Habitat, and 100,000 for Boys and Girls Clubs.
Do we still have a second?
Yes, second.
Okay. Further discussion on that motion? Mr. Kroll.
Can I just reiterate concern? I think that's a valid concern, so I just want to make sure I bring it up again.
And you said fund balance concern. I don't know if your mic kind of cut out on there for a minute. So Councilman Spencer?
Just to follow up with Mr. Cole's comment. So earlier you said that for the FY23 budget process, that you intend to use even further reserve fund balance to balance the budget.
That's
Correct.
correct. That's what's
So
been,
that, so that's even
proposed
to
to the mayor.
lower our budget or our reserve fund balance even further.
it would lower it to about 10%.
We have the motion and second to remove the 3 items. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Deacon,
Aye.
Fitzwater,
Aye.
Hensley,
Nay.
Kimna,
No.
Lester,
No.
Schreiber,
Aye.
Spencer,
Aye.
Spicer,
Aye.
Ward. No. Wiseman.
Aye.
We have 6 ayes, motion passes.
Okay, so those 3 items have been eliminated. We have some, I know Councilman Fitzwater, part of your motion was to replace those, but I guess they're already sort of in the draft list, I guess.
Well, the 2 that I was going to propose that we add were a placeholder for the CVB dollars of 175,000. But again, I think it's wise that we not spend it until we hear no that we can't find the money anyplace else. And also a placeholder for the downtown project to give whoever's involved in that project time to see if we can find the matching funds, because again, if we don't get the matching funds, then I think it goes right back into the pool. But at least we have a placeholder there to allow us time to work on a project that would beautify our city, and it's not a lot of dollars. Yeah, I think it's very worthwhile. So that's my motion, to add those 2, but put them in a placeholder category until we make sure that we can't get funds from the state on one and get the matching dollars for the other.
There's a motion
I'll second that.
and a second. Further discussion? Councilman Spencer?
And this is for Councilman Weissman. Do you have an idea of time that you think would be appropriate to allow for, is it the Downtown Association? Is that?
It wouldn't be necessarily for the I mean, I don't know that the Downtown Association would spearhead that. I will have to ask and see how much time. So this would be more of a placeholder for now. Obviously, well, I would suggest that we don't vote on it, because if it makes the list, then I will find out more information and then we'll get that. So that way there can be a special presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Fitzwater,
Aye.
Hensley,
Aye.
Kimna,
Aye.
Lester,
Aye.
Schreiber,
Aye.
Spencer,
Aye.
Spicer,
Aye.
Ward,
Aye.
Wiseman,
Aye.
Deacon.
Motion passes. So where does that leave us then with the 94,000 requests from Councilman Lester for fire station solar panels, correct? So is that on the, I'm kind of confused. Is that on the list? No. Okay. So it would require a motion second to, so I don't know. I'd leave that up to you, Councilman Lester, if you wanted to propose that.
I will.
Okay.
So I move that we add that to the list in recognition that it will save us money in our budget in the future.
So we have a motion. Is there a second? So we don't have a second. I might ask maybe for future, I don't know if that's something that Chief Schofield may want to connect with on that particular item.
I don't have anything ready tonight on that. I can certainly, we're started down that road to explore what that would look like, and I can certainly have something for the council to look at it and more definitive information, probably within a week or two.
Okay, and what did you say at the very end? More,
More information, more comprehensive and complete information within a week or two,
Okay.
if you give me a little more time.
so it looks like we need a little more time on that particular request, and Chief Schofield will work on that for us. Councilman Spencer, sorry.
It's okay. It's going to happen more.
First time I did it tonight. Yeah, that's
Hey,
right.
you got, I'm
Yeah,
getting better.
right.
I would just like to make a proposal that we put in $200,000, a placeholder for the efficiency performance audit that the Citizens Committee is working on.
So we have a motion. Is there a second? Motion and second. Any further discussion?
Madam Mayor,
Roll call. Oh, yes, Councilman Hensley.
sorry, I should wave my hands because you probably get the picture a lot faster than you get my audio. So by my rough math, let's see, how much, so we took on about 325,000 in new after cutting about 300,000. And so that would leave us with a current cushion of about 170. Somebody can check my math. I'm wondering if Councilman Spencer has a suggestion for the remainder, what I estimate to be around $30,000.
I think what would be appropriate maybe is to put the placeholder of the $175,000 in so that we don't overextend what our budget is in the ARPA fund. I guess what I would just trying to convey to the Citizens Committee is that this is a priority of this council and that we are trying to have a funding stream to fund this process for this study. So again, it was just a shot in the dark as far as an amount. It might be 150,000, it might be 175, it might be 225. I just don't know. So I'm comfortable with leaving that, using the fuzzy math that you come up with, Councilman Inslee, for of 175,000. I think, is that what you said, that there might be
I
left?
think it's going to be, I mean, if my numbers are anywhere close to right, it's going to be just shy of 170,000. It might be like 169,994.
Man, it sounds like a Walmart price, doesn't it?
Well, it's on sale this week.
So how about for ease, could we put in a placeholder of 150?
So you'll change your motion then to 150.
200.
And we have a motion and second to add that to the draft list, 150. Motion and second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Hensley,
Aye.
Kimna,
Aye.
Lester,
Aye.
Schreiber, Spencer,
Aye.
Spicer,
Aye.
Ward,
Aye.
Wiseman,
Aye.
Deacon, Fitzwater.
Aye.
Motion passes. And also just clarifying that not only is that a draft, but basically everything on here is still in the draft form, as we see how it can certainly change and has changed tonight. Any other discussion this evening on the list? Councilwoman Wiseman?
Mayor, as I look at this, it appears some of these we haven't talked about at all because it almost seems as if we agree to them, and maybe I'm incorrect. what I'd like to do is I'd like to move the fire radios, the body cameras, and then the $540,000 for city facilities to be approved for ordinance writing. If we can do that. And Lincoln. The $500,000 to the Lincoln local match.
Okay, so we have a motion
Second.
and a second. Mr. Mullen, were you getting ready to say something?
Just want to clarify the motion. So essentially, this is instruction to city staff to prepare a budget amendment to those 4 projects.
Yes, sir, because that's the appropriate way to do this, right?
I agree.
Okay.
And while we're talking to you about that, I know that the million for MSP, as you're working on that development agreement as we speak and getting very close to some of those details, would this be helpful if that were included in that list that is proposed?
The certainty of funding is always helpful. So if that's the council's desire, yeah.
Wait, what was the question?
Adding the million, which is under,
Infrastructure?
yes.
Okay, yes. I amend my motion to include that.
Okay. Did you get that, Mr. Mullen? And the items.
I'm looking
that-
at Emily to make sure she got it.
Okay, Emily got all those items written down. Okay.
I have a
Councilwoman Ward?
point of clarification. Did it include the fire burn building? It didn't, did it?
No, I did not include the burn building. There may still be some question on that. I know there's been some support about that, but I did not include that.
So for the motion on the table, we have these items. Yeah, that would be great.
Fire radios, PD body and car cameras, city facilities, infrastructure and capital projects in the Lincoln University local match.
Okay, we have the motion and second. Any further discussion? Councilman Spencer?
Sorry. So just to make sure, fire radios, PD and body cameras, and maybe even a portion, no, strike that. Fire radios and PD and car cameras, there will be language in that so that will be reimbursed.
That is my understanding from the chart. And so that's what I'm hoping will be in ordinance.
Right, so just to clarify, so essentially, it's if grant funding becomes available to defray those costs, then that grant, the defrayed costs would essentially revert back to the ARPA fund.
Say it again.
So if grant funding becomes available for the fire radios, I guess for any of these, but specifically the fire radios and the police body cameras, if that funding becomes available, then a corresponding amount would revert back to the ARPA fund.
It'd go back to ARPA funds, not general fund, so that we can reallocate it, because it originally came from ARPA funds, so that is perfect. Thank
May
you.
I chime in, please? Sorry. You might want to check the rules. If you have an obligated budget item, you can't, that's called supplanting. You can't turn around and spend it and then put it back into the original budget.
We'll double check the rules and make sure that's good. I think we may be talking about 2 slightly different mechanisms, but we'll make sure it gets done correctly.
Okay. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Kimna,
Aye.
Lester,
Aye.
Schreiber,
Aye.
Spencer,
Aye.
Spicer,
Aye.
Ward,
Aye.
Wiseman,
Aye.
Deacon,
Aye.
Fitzwater,
Aye.
Hensley.
Motion passes. Further discussion, comments?
Madam Mayor.
on ARPA? Councilwoman Wiseman?
Just
Oh, and
real-
then Hensley, I believe. Wiseman?
Oh, sorry, Councilman. And those, are those going to be written separately just in case we have an issue with funding? How about this?
Yes.
Please? Thank you.
Councilman Hensley?
Thank you very much. Before I make the motion, Councilwoman Wiseman mentioned, I believe it was Councilwoman Wiseman just a moment ago mentioned the burn building and that there may be some additional or ongoing or conflicting discussion involving the burn building. And if it was mentioned tonight, I'm not sure how I managed to miss it, but I wouldn't be surprised. Is there currently an issue or a conflict related to that particular need that would cause us not to, or would cause us, or would result in a recommendation that we not move forward potentially on that tonight? And I'll just open that up to anybody in the room, essentially.
I would call on Chief Schofield to start that discussion.
So maybe just a quick recap on the fire burn building and drill tower and really the Hyde as a whole. So, we've been out there for 25 years at Hyde Park and that vicinity. We were kind of the first of all the city departments to be in that area. And the burn building drill tower combination facility was really the first thing to be constructed out there. And so we're 25 plus years there, and continued investment in the surrounding area, not just by us, but also by all the various utilities. We have great water supply out there and access, a great pad facility, training room / storage building, trench prop, and also even the rubble pile. And so that's a multi-use facility for a lot of city departments. And then obviously since then, we've added the animal shelter, streets, wastewater out there. So that's just kind of the recap, and the ask and the need, the critical need is the burn building, and what it really is historically was a burn room. And that room, after repeated hard use over many years, it was deemed to be unsafe back in late 2017. So we discontinued its use for live fire burning in that room. And even at that, it was end of life, probably really by that time anyway. So just to kind of paint that picture a little bit for you, we did build a stopgap, kind of a makeshift shipping container area that we could use for some live fire exercises. That it's not ideal, and it certainly is not what is needed, but it kind of filled a gap. And so we've been doing that since 2018. And a lot of folks kind of pitched in to make that work. So it's a facility that is really limited now because of that one key piece. Probably the most important piece is not functional. So that's what this would be. And we would and have looked for grant opportunities and continue to. The problem with many of the federal fire grants are that they don't fund brick and mortar, and they never have. So that would be a very significant departure for the AFG program that we traditionally get our grants from. If you've heard of us being successful in grants, it's typically an AFG grant, Assistance to Firefighters grant. And they don't and never have, and in my understanding, have no intention of ever funding facilities, brick and mortar facilities. So that's not really an option. That particular form of grant, which is the kind that we typically do seek and sometimes are fortunate enough to receive. We also reached out to some of the other departments within the county a few years ago, and at the time they were not interested in collaborative venture with us. Certainly willing to ask them again, but I think for us the investment and the nature of the facility and the amount of use that we would put on it would be much greater than anybody else that we might allow to utilize it under certain conditions. So it is a critical piece of our training that we've been kind of lacking. We find creative ways to work around it, and we'll continue to, but I can say that live fire training for us is critical. So happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Kroll?
Could I just add to that, that's also one of the projects we turned into the county for consideration under their ARPA funding.
We did.
Councilman Schreiber?
Now, Spencer, that's,
I'm so sorry.
sorry,
Sorry.
didn't mean to offend
Too
you.
many S's right here in a row. You
Yeah.
guys have, it's harder than it looks. Schreiber?
Chief Schofield, that Hyde Park, training facility also has a big impact to some degree, doesn't it, for our fire rating by insurance
it
and
does.
also,
Yeah.
the fact we use that for when we had the state fire school, which we no longer have in part because we are not able to have an adequate facility for that training.
That is true. We were home to the summer fire school for the University of Missouri Extension for many, many years. And they pulled that back to Columbia about the same time that our burn building was decommissioned. Not to say that we'd get it back, but we certainly give that a shot. You know, we'd appeal for that and apply for that opportunity again. But yes, there is also, when we do have our every 5 years we have an ISO evaluation, and there are points allotted to having access to a facility with all those components we spoke of. And they kind of gave us a pass this last time. They said, you know, you have a temporary facility and that we'll let that slide this time. But when we come due for our next one, they fully anticipate to see a fully functional burn building.
And shipping containers have real limitations because they can only be used so many
Yes.
times.
No matter what you do with the shipping container and how much you try to protect it, the steel is just not made for that repeated, not only the heating, but then also has trouble with freezing and thawing cycles for many years. So it's maybe not as resilient a structure as we'd like to seek to build. You know, our intent would be, if a funding request like this were to be approved, to build something that would last 20 to 30 years at least.
Even though we've got a rate of inflation now that's unprecedented for a considerable length of time, are you pretty confident that the amount that we've requested here, the amount that has been requested, would be sufficient to upgrade Hyde Park?
It's a challenging time to put a target on something like that, but I think we're really close. We did look into that pretty hard, and that's why the number has gone up. I'll be honest with you, over the last few years. You may have noticed this item's been in my pink sheets for, I think, probably 7 years, you know, since I started doing pink sheets. So it has gone up, and that is partly due to the conditions and factors you just mentioned. But we think this is a workable number.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
So, yes, Councilman Hensley.
Thank you. Obviously, I can't see hands in the room, but if there are no other questions or comments, I would like to move that the council accept the Hyde Park burn building line and the soccer complex line as they're currently stated on the framework, and approve them for inclusion in a funding bill. I'm sure I'd like
Second.
that.
I'll second.
Okay, we have the motion and second. Councilman Fitzwater?
Yeah, sorry I didn't get my hand up quick enough, Councilman. My only question is, I tried to lean over. I was just wondering if with the county, I mean, they have not given us an answer yet. And potential with some of the state's new infrastructure dollars, if that might at least be something that we could propose, if it makes sense, confirming those two options, whether they would work or not work. I mean, I 100% support the project. I just like, if there are other options, to spend other dollars. If not, so however you want to proceed. I mean, I think there's a placeholder here, but if we can at least explore if there's other dollars available before we commit to it, based on if we spend the dollars, then we can't recoup the dollars, my understanding.
Right. Yeah. And I think your use of a placeholder there is just right. I think what we would be accepting here or adopting here is simply an up to amount. And if there were additional outside dollars that came in that would offset some of that spend, then the spending authority that was offset, I think, would just roll back into the current ARPA pot. If, you know, in whatever manner is allowable.
Thank you, Councilman Hensley. I think we'll make sure that Mrs. Donaldson reflects that in the motion, that if those other funding sources come available, and knowing what a priority this is, as we are working with the county and are hopeful that they would also see the extreme need that we have for this, and like Chief Schofield outlined already, and I know it's been put in the application and pink sheet item for many, many years, so hopefully they will also be accepting in some funding for this as well. So we have the motion and second for this placeholder up to amount, and seeing if hopefully other sources will become available. Any further discussion? Roll call,
And Madam
please.
Mayor,
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Fitzwater. Oh, okay, Fitzwater and then Hensley. Fitzwater?
Sorry, thought I hit my mic.
Yeah. Ms. Cinzy had a good point. I think we need to dig into a little further. The problem is not worth the ARPA funding. It's with whatever future funding may be sought. And so once you commit to a project, there is a chance, depending on the separate programs, that once you budget for a project, you may have excluded yourself from seeking other funds to supplant that budget. And so that's fairly complicated, and the plan is to do the necessary research so that when these funding bills come to the city council, you guys have a full picture of what the opportunity and risks may be, if there are any. And so I can't give you a 100% bill of I'm comfortable right now, because future research still needs to be done, but I can assure you that will be done before it's up for final decision by the city council. So it's a little bit of an unknown, because yeah, some general supplanting rules say once you budget for something, you can't then pull your regular money out and supplant it with the grant money. So we don't want to make any final commitments till we have a good handle on that.
So are you saying we are safe to vote on this or not?
We are safe to vote on it because nothing is being done vis-a-vis the budget right now. The final action is going to be budget.
Okay,
You know, it's like I was saying last week, there are directions the vote right now is direction to move forward with an ordinance. Until that ordinance passes, there is no commitment on budget. So that's going to be the deciding, that's going to be the watershed moment for when these things become committed. And that's the real important time frame.
okay. And then Councilman Hensley?
yeah, I just wanted to make sure that it was also included in there, that my motion included the soccer complex funding.
All right, Emily is adding that as we speak now.
Great, thank you.
So we have the motion and second. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Lester,
Aye.
Schreiber,
Aye.
Spencer,
Aye.
Spicer,
Aye.
Ward,
Aye.
Wiseman,
Aye.
Deacon, Fitzwater,
Aye.
Hensley, Kimna.
Aye.
Motion passes. Any other discussion on item 5, the ARPA discussion? I know it is an ongoing discussion. I know we do have the, of course, with the Salvation Army group here this evening as well. Appreciate them through the discussion. Councilman Spencer?
So I guess for our next discussion of ARPA funds I assume at the next council, unless we're going to have a work session on it, could we get an updated revised list of what's on block, so to speak, and what's been removed?
I believe Councilman Hensley created the spreadsheet, so if you just email it to me and I'll update it.
Yeah, sure thing.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, we will move on from item 5 and likely have it, sounds like at the next council meeting as well. Several future council meetings, I'm sure. Item 6, public hearings. There are none. Item 7, no appointments. Item 8, any presentations? I don't see any, and we've covered everyone who's signed up. Item 9, announcements by mayor, council, and staff. Our 4 standing committees, we will go through those. Item 1, administration.
Yes, our next meeting is at 7:30 a.m. On August 3rd.
Okay, and finance.
No update tonight. Thank you.
Okay, public safety.
Yes, Madam Mayor, our next meeting will be Thursday, July 30th at 7:30 a.m.
Okay, and public works.
Thank you. We will be meeting on Thursday, July 14th, 7:30 here at City Hall.
Okay, and Councilman Spencer has a meeting announcement.
Yeah, our efficiency performance audit or organizational assessment committee is locked in. We met previously in later part of June, and our next meeting will be this Friday, July 8th at 1 p.m. across the hall at Boone Bancroft Room.
Thank you. Yes, Councilman.
It's the 28th.
Okay, Councilman Schreiber has corrected.
Yeah.
Public safety is not July 30th, it's July
28th.
28th.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, yeah, we're not coming here on Saturday.
We're not?
And then I'll go through my announcements. Want to thank everyone who participated in the Salute to America July 3rd and 4th festival. I know the city sponsors that every year, but we appreciate all of the departments that worked hard to make that happen. I know that we had everything from, of course, our public safety officers were there, police officers, and our fire department was present, along with, of course, Parks was there doing a lot of work too. During the festival, we also had our permitting that was done for a lot of the vendors and planning and so many logistics, finance, working with the business licenses. There were just so many, literally, I think every department, and I'm sure I missed several that were, I know Steve worked there as well. There are just so many groups, just even within the city organization, that worked together to make that festival happen. And while it is put on by a nonprofit group, it's quite an undertaking for the city, and we appreciate everybody's participation and those who made sure and provided our public safety while we were all out enjoying the holiday and they were working it, whether at the festival or just being on duty. So we certainly appreciate our city staff for that, and another great Salute to America event. Also that night, I guess last night on July 4th, I watched the fireworks from Adrian's Island. It was a great vantage point. It was a very small group, being the first kind of group event we had there as a public access or public safety access is very limited to get to the island. So it's not something that can be a large group, but it was nice to have something there for the first year. And it was set up as a fundraising event for the Parks and Rec Foundation, and the small group being, City Council and Parks and Rec Foundation and Commission and Bicentennial Bridge Committee, and those who worked hard to actually get the project to come to fruition. So it was nice to be able to see it from that perspective. Appreciate Parks and Rec. Chairman Leichel is here tonight too, and all that they've done for that project as well. A couple events that are upcoming, I've announced them before, but I'll say it again, is the Firefighters Local 671 Golf Tournament is August 5th. And while that always sells out, you can be a sponsor. I've already sponsored, so I would throw that challenge out to council members and members of the public to support what our firefighters local does for our community. August 27th is Guns and Hoses, the annual hockey game, and you can sponsor a player if you haven't already, or purchase tickets before they sell out. So I'm sure if you see any of our public safety personnel, they'd be happy to get you to sponsor or buy some tickets for those two worthy causes and events. And they're pretty entertaining too, so invite y'all to participate. Any other announcements? Councilman Schreiber?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd like to personally thank Sharon and Tom Knott and Sam and Linda Bush for help with the Salute to America this year. So
Absolutely. They stepped up to make that a great free event for everybody. Thank you. Item 10, we have no presentations on any bills tonight. Item 11, consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Bills introduced 2022-27.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement with Concrete Solution LLC in the amount of $550,448.95 for the Adams Street Sidewalk 2022 project.
Mr. Marash?
Thank you. This is a project we've been working on for quite some time, but it's basically a school sidewalk project along Adams Street from Dunklin over to Woodlawn. And actually, alternate C would take that a little bit further down to connect to the new Jefferson City sports fields. But the Carol indicated that the total dollar amount, C grant would fund 313,000 of that. The remainder would be from the city's half-cent capital improvement sales tax under the sidewalk category. Be happy to answer any questions. This, we did not recommend selecting alternate A or alternate B, which was speed humps and additional sidewalk on Hickory Street. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Councilman Spencer?
Just a quick question as far as the funding. Did we try to contact with a school board at all to maybe kick in some dollars for the sidewalk, since it is an enhancement for?
Yeah, we did not with this project. In the past, we've tried to work on some of those things and haven't been successful, though.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Number 2022-28.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri to enter into a contract with Command Fire Apparatus.
Chief Schofield?
Yes, thank you. This is a proposal to do a straight across trade for 4 of our older special use, I'll call them special service fleet, the fire department, large apparatus fleet, where we would essentially exchange 4 of those vehicles for 1 heavy rescue unit, which is also used. So this project really is kind of the culmination of an overall consolidation effort to try to be a little more efficient with our operations, but also to recognize some potential savings with maintenance of these older apparatus. They range in age from 1 being the year 2000, 1 being a 1994, and then 2 being 2004 vintage apparatus. So all of them are pretty old in the overall fleet picture, and they do have significant maintenance cost. So for us to surplus them, it's a pretty favorable time right now to surplus some existing older equipment. And it would allow us to do that as pretty much a straight across trade. There would be some minimal expense in terms of upfitting the vehicle, adapting it to our use, and then some of the logistics with delivery and handoff of those vehicles. But we anticipate trying to cover that within our regular budget, line item budget already allotted to us for FY22. A couple other items of interest: that this vehicle does come with a 1-year powertrain warranty from the vendor. We have reached out to the previous owners. They replaced it actually this year with a brand new unit. That's why they surplused it. So we believe this is a overall good move for efficiency, not only in our fleet, but also operationally. It does reduce some of our maintenance, as well as open up some bay space that we currently occupy with these older vehicles. So happy to answer any questions that I can.
Any questions for Chief Schofield or Councilman Schreiber?
Yes. Right. I believe this is a good move as well, and talked to several members of the council on this, and we discussed it at some extent at the public safety meeting. And it will enable us to get a heavy rescue vehicle for a very reasonable price. It's a low mileage vehicle with only about 13,000 miles. It is a Pierce, which we've used before. A new vehicle this type would be in the neighborhood of somewhere around 900,000. So it'll allow us to combine our light and air, some hazmat, and heavy rescue items. So it should be a very advantageous move. And as the chief said, we will be spending no public safety funds on this. It'll be an even trade. So I would request, make a motion that we be allowed to suspend the rules. It's a motion.
We've had a request to suspend the rules. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we'll take up 2022-28.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri to enter into a contract with Command Fire Apparatus.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Schreiber,
Aye.
Spencer,
Aye.
Spicer,
Aye.
Ward,
Aye.
Wiseman,
Aye.
Deacon,
Aye.
Fitzwater,
Aye.
Hensley,
Aye.
Kimna,
Aye.
Lester.
Aye.
Bill passes. 2022-29.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri approving an essential worker payment and amending the FY 2022 budget of the City of Jefferson, Missouri by supplementally appropriating funds as outlined in Exhibit A.
Mr. Kroll,
This would authorize the use of American Rescue Plan Act funds for essential worker payments in the amount of $2,500 per employee.
any council questions? Discussion? Okay. Item 13, bills pending 2022-17.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri amending the City Code, Chapter 32, Section 230.
Mr. Sanders?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This section of code deals with the litter, and one of the issues that we've had in PPS is sometimes with issues with sidewalks that really aren't covered under the nuisance code. Hazards, which may include mud, grease from restaurants and alleys, for say, or snow or ice or things like that. So we've basically added 3 or 4 sentences to the litter code that allows us to better notify, or it sets up a procedure to notify a violation, gives us a timeline when we can abate and what the process is in terms of our attempts to try to contact the property owner. This has gone through the Public Works and Planning Committee and here to the council before. It was staff initiated, and there's no fiscal impact. Be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions? All right, roll call, please.
Spencer,
Aye.
Spicer,
Aye.
Ward, Wiseman,
Aye.
Deacon,
Aye.
Fitzwater,
Aye.
Hensley, Kimna,
Aye.
Lester,
Aye.
Schreiber.
Aye.
Bill passes. 2022-18 through 24.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri amending the City Code, Chapter 8, Section 8-2 and Section 8-3 by replacing the adoption of the National Electrical Code 2014 and amendments to the National Electrical Code 2014 by the adoption of NFPA 70, National Electric Code 2017 edition. Bill 19, an ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri amending the City Code, Chapter 8, Section 8-4 and Section 8-5 by replacing the adoption of the International Plumbing Code 2015 and amendments to the International Plumbing Code 2015 by the adoption of the 2018 International Plumbing Code. Bill 20, an ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri amending the City Code, Chapter 8, Article 1, Sections 8-6, 8-7, 8-8, and 8-9 by replacing the adoption of the 2015 International Mechanical Code and 2015 International Fuel Gas Code by adoption of the 2018 International Mechanical Code and 2018 International Fuel Gas Code. Bill 21, an ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri amending the City Code, Chapter 8, Article 1, Section 8-10 and 8-11 by inserting the adoption of the 2018 International Energy Conservation Code and amendments to the 2018 International Energy Conservation Code. Bill 22, an ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, amending the City Code, Chapter 8, Article 2, Sections 8-18, 8-19, 8-21, 8-22, 8-23, 8-24, 8-25, and 8-26 by replacing the adoption of the 2015 International Building Code, 2015 International Residential Code, 2015 International Existing Building Code, and 2015 International Swimming Pool and Spa Code, and their amendments by adoption of the 2018 International Building Code, 2018 International Residential Code, 2018 Existing Building Code, and 2018 International Swimming Pool and Spa Code amendments. Bill 23, an ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, amending the City Code, Chapter 8, Sections 8-49 and 8-50 by replacing the adoption of the 2015 International Property Maintenance Code and amendments to the 2015 International Property Maintenance Code by adoption of the 2018 International Property Maintenance Code. Bill 24, an ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, amending the City Code, Chapter 13, Article 3, Section 13-42, and Section 13-43 by replacing the adoption of the 2015 International Fire Code and amendments to the 2015 International Fire Code by adoption of the 2018 International Fire Code.
Good job, Emily. Mr. Kryling.
Hopefully it'll take less time to explain. Council passed a resolution in 2019 to form an ad hoc committee and several subcommittees to review the 2018 version of the codes. Meetings began in 2020 and were interrupted by both the pandemic and some changes to the building regulations staff. In all, those meetings restarted in 2021. We had 33 plus meetings, public meetings with 16 or 17 industry representatives and staff from both planning and protective services and the fire department. Reviewed 10 model codes, 9 of which are included in this list for adoption. The other 2 that are in this list, the electrical and plumbing codes, are reviewed annually by those standing review boards. And so as part of the interrelated nature are included in the bills before you. The one new code would be the Energy Conservation Code, which would include energy requirements and installation requirements for non-residential buildings. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Discussion? Okay, we will go through each one and do a roll call. So 2022-18.
Spicer,
Aye.
Ward,
Aye.
Wiseman,
Aye.
Deacon, Fitzwater,
Aye.
Hensley, Kimna,
Aye.
Lester,
Aye.
Schreiber,
Aye.
Spencer.
Aye.
Bill passes 2022-19.
Ward,
Aye.
Wiseman,
Aye.
Deacon, Fitzwater,
Aye.
Hensley,
Aye.
Kimna,
Aye.
Lester,
Aye.
Schreiber,
Aye.
Spencer,
Aye.
Spicer.
Aye.
Bill passes 2022-20.
Wiseman,
Aye.
Deacon, Fitzwater,
Aye.
Hensley,
Aye.
Kimna,
Aye.
Lester,
Aye.
Schreiber,
Aye.
Spencer,
Aye.
Spicer,
Aye.
Ward.
Bill passes 2022-21.
Deacon, Fitzwater,
Aye.
Aye.
Hensley, Kimna,
Aye.
Lester,
Aye.
Schreiber,
Aye.
Spencer,
Aye.
Spicer,
Aye.
Ward,
Aye.
Wiseman.
Aye.
Bill passes 2022-22.
Fitzwater,
Aye.
Hensley,
Aye.
Kimna,
Aye.
Lester,
Aye.
Schreiber,
Aye.
Spencer,
Aye.
Spicer,
Aye.
Ward,
Aye.
Wiseman,
Aye.
Deacon,
Aye.
Bill passes 2022-23.
Hensley,
Aye.
Kimna,
Aye.
Lester,
Aye.
Schreiber,
Aye.
Spencer,
Aye.
Spicer,
Aye.
Ward, Wiseman,
Aye.
Deacon, Fitzwater,
Aye.
Bill passes 2022-24.
Kimna,
Aye.
Lester,
Aye.
Schreiber,
Aye.
Spencer,
Aye.
Spicer,
Aye.
Ward,
Aye.
Wiseman,
Aye.
Deacon,
Aye.
Fitzwater,
Aye.
Aye.
Hensley.
Bill passes. And thank you, Mr. Kryling. I know that may seem a bit mundane, but it's very important information, and thank you for the time you put into it.
It's no problem. I'd also like to thank, for the record, the volunteers that we had that attended those meetings, the industry professionals, developers, contractors, designers that took their time to go through the code and all the changes and put this recommendation forward. Thank you.
We certainly do appreciate them and all of that. Thank you. 2022-25.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement with Mid-Missouri Earth Movers LLC for the demolition of the dangerous structures located at 109 Adams, 113 Adams, 401 East Capitol, 407 East Capitol, 409 East Capitol, 419 East Capitol, and 410/416 East Capitol.
Mr. Sanders?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This bill and the one after it are as a result of the plan that Mr. Molman put together regarding Capitol Avenue back in April. This contract and the next one are for demolitions up on Capitol Avenue. When the contract is awarded, there is not a notice to proceed at that time. The contract is to serve as a tool for the county. The structural assessments are presented to you. You also have information on what the demo cost is on those, along with the estimated costs to bring the building back up into livable quality conditions. So this contract is with Mid-Missouri Earth Movers for, I believe, 7 other properties for $193,000. We did bid these sort of all or individually. We kind of gave some flexibility to the contractors. That's why we have 2 contracts. With that, I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions? Roll call, please.
Lester,
Aye.
Schreiber,
Aye.
Spencer,
Aye.
Spicer,
Aye.
Ward,
Aye.
Wiseman,
Aye.
Deacon,
Aye.
Fitzwater,
Aye.
Hensley, Kimna.
Aye.
Bill passes in 2022-26.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement with Aaron's Contracting Incorporated for the demolition of the dangerous structures located at 413 East Capitol, 517 East Capitol, and 415 Commercial Way.
Anything to add, Sunny?
Just that this contractor is a larger contractor that works on larger buildings. That's one reason contractor may have not as bid as competitively, but there are 2 different companies that focus on 2 different types of structures, and it's basically 3 properties. They're larger structures close to other ones. That's why the bid may appear to be a little bit higher at $120,000.
Thank you. Any questions, discussion? Roll call, please.
Schreiber,
Aye.
Spencer,
Aye.
Spicer,
Aye.
Ward,
Aye.
Wiseman,
Aye.
Deacon,
Aye.
Fitzwater,
Aye.
Hensley,
Aye.
Kimna,
Aye.
Lester.
Aye.
Bill passes 2022-9.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri approving the salary adjustment as outlined in Exhibit B and amending the FY 2022 budget of the City of Jefferson, Missouri by supplementally appropriating funds within the various city funds outlined in Exhibit A.
And we did have a work session that discussed this. I will turn it over to Mr. Kroll.
Thank you. This would authorize a salary adjustment as noted in the substitute, excluding those employees that were noted in the substitute. Glad to answer any questions.
Questions or discussion? Roll call, please.
Spencer,
Is there a hand or no? Yes. I'm sorry. Okay, I couldn't tell there. Sorry. You did have a comment, Councilman Fitzwater? Okay. Councilman Fitzwater.
Yes, we're on the discussion from the salary adjustment. The discussion earlier in regard to fund balances and where we're headed, and I think there was some question in regard to the 23 budget. And I know some of these questions were raised last Monday night, I guess it was. Are we comfortable we're going to be able to get that fund balance back to the appropriate level? I mean, we're proposing $154,000 out of the general fund for fiscal year 22. And then a series coming out of the funds. Find it interesting, we're taking $33,000 out of the transit fund when we're trying to give bus service away for about $40,000. And I'm just, based on the earlier discussion, if we're going to go down to 10%, I mean, what's our plan to get back from 10 to 17, in addition to making sure we can cover these expenses in 2023.
Is that directed to Mr. Kroll?
Well, either,
Or
either or any.
Well,
Mr. Kroll?
First of all, I've literally just gave the budget to the mayor, so we even haven't had a chance to sit down and go through that yet. So she hasn't had that opportunity yet. There's probably a couple of options. From my point of view, none of them are painless. I mean, there's if you want to build back that that fund balance, there's probably a few options. One that makes sense to me is to build it back over the period of a couple of years, which means not spend out of fund balance. What I don't know, or what other projects council may have that they're interested in using, which is why I thought replacing the revenue, ARPA money for the revenue loss was a good option. But so we can build that back, but you know, there would have to be over a number of years where we would replenish that fund balance with the budget savings.
We're looking at a potential cost of 1.4 million fiscal 23 just to replicate what we're proposing here.
That about 1.4 million on an annual budget for the item that we're talking about now for the salaries. Yeah, so it'd be about 1.4 million on an annual budget, which I have included in the fiscal 23 year budget that's been proposed to the mayor. But my thinking is that that's something that deals with our employees that we have to address. I don't think that that's really an option. Now, you can certainly have an option of whether it's a different amount, but I think we need to remain competitive, including remaining competitive at the minimum of that salary range. But that amount of money is already in the proposed budget with the fund balance restriction on it that I just mentioned. So the other piece of this particular action would be funding it for the remainder of this fiscal year, our current fiscal year.
It's in the 23, assuming we tap into general fund more. I guess I missed part of the discussion where we got to the 10%. It was because we had to dip in to make 23 match.
Yes. 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 We're using a portion of the fund balance. It's already below 17%. And used some of that fund balance to balance the budget, particularly because of some of that CARES money going away that we've been talking about for 3 years. And that would bring the fund balance to about 10%. Is that correct, Sheila? I don't think we did it a little bit above, a little bit below.
It's slightly below that.
Or the CARES money, that's the money.
We use, council authorized using some of the CARES money for transit, which, so yes, it is.
So we have to account for that in 23 then?
So that CARES money is gone. We've used that money, and so that's not available for transit. And then, as you know, the fund balance, transit is subsidized by the general fund. So as that money went away, there's some more money that needed to go into transit in addition to needing to balance the general fund budget from the general fund balance.
The budget submitted to the mayor, is there an adjustment over and above this adjustment? So are we going to propose more than this for 23?
On salaries? Is that what? I have an amount of money in the budget in anticipation of whatever the evergreen recommendations are, but I don't know what those recommendations are. I don't know if that amount that I have in there is sufficient or not. And then, of course, I'm not really sure what the final direction was going to be from council on a particular plan on those salaries. So I have an amount of money in there. I think it's a good number, but I don't know for sure.
Have you seen any preliminaries from Evergreen yet?
No, Gail and I met with them, and I think, Gail's not here, but I think they're planning on coming to council at the next meeting and getting some additional information for you. I know they've been collecting information.
we suggested that they go get some additional information from our discussion. I don't think we're too far off, but again, I don't know the particular recommendations. And if we don't move the minimums, then I think that there's going to be, that certainly would have an impact in my view.
This proposal is for a third of the 4 months.
The item before you is for the remainder of this fiscal year.
Is that 4 months?
Remember exactly what the effective date was going to be,
Well, I was just trying
July.
to translate what that,
Yeah, so it'd be for the rest of July, August, September, and October.
the 3.5 months,
And then we start our new fiscal year.
correct. Last question, in regard, getting back to the fund balance. And I've tried to go through our financial reports. You're comfortable, I know sales tax revenue is up. Is that because we're seeing more items sold in the city, or is it partly due to the fact that everything we buy is more expensive, which means sales tax on it? I'm trying to get to, are we really selling more items, or are we just selling more expensive items that's generating additional sales tax?
I don't know. I think it's probably a little bit of both of those, in addition to people wanting to spend more after the pandemic. I will say, though, that I used a very aggressive dollar amount on sales tax for that fiscal year 23 budget.
Get the budget to balance, or you just feel that's something we can defend?
To help balance the budget. It didn't balance the budget because I had to use fund balance to do some of that. I don't think it's an unrealistic number, but I think it's an aggressive number.
Final comment, not really a question. Our process is set, and again, I mean, we all left this room last week committed to trying to do what's appropriate for our staff that we value. And we've got a proposal that will come back to us, I assume, for final approval, the Arpa dollars, which I realize are one-time dollars, so you can't really count them as salary dollars, but they are dollars in people's pocket. So, I mean, they're real dollars. Part of the reason we have the process we do is to give us time to both think about what's happened or what we're proposing, and to hear from the public who has vested interest in funding this initiative through their taxes and their sales tax and so forth. I've heard a lot of negative comments, and that's why we're here, to sort out negative comments, and do what we think is appropriate. Each of the 10 of us, when in our heart or our gut feeling, we feel like we're moving in the right direction and we can afford it. I still feel like there's information I would like to have financially before I'm comfortable, and people can get frustrated that I'm not trying to drag this out, but I also feel a commitment that we've got to make sure that we can afford what we're doing, and that only comes through having information. And I know we've had a discussion on fund balance, and I'm guilty for part of it because I moved to put some dollars into a couple of the initiatives that we just funded, because long-term, I think it's appropriate for our city. We inherited some things that we're trying to fix, and that's one of them, and it's expensive to do. I'm just concerned with the new information and where we're headed, the fact that we've got additional expenses we're going to be inheriting with transit, And I, for one, would just like to see some numbers and the budget process before I move forward. So that will probably impact how I respond tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Fitzwater. Any other discussion before we vote on the bill? Councilman Spencer.
Uh, Again, I just want to say thank you to everyone here. Really worked on the proposal in our work session. And I know our staff is really hoping that we can act on this tonight. I just felt like I got a swift kick in the gut when I heard about the fund balance issue and then some potential struggles with fiscal year 23 budget. And we already have a process of a direction we're moving with a salary study that we hadn't received yet. I mean, I'm a big proponent of this longevity pay plan. I think it would really help our staff, especially the ones that have stuck it out through the good and bad times. And they're deserving of it. But I just can't consciously move forward without a lot of these questions being answered. And I'm really disappointed in that. And I look out at all the employees that are here tonight, and I apologize. I failed you. I really thought we had some good numbers to work off of. So I share Councilman Fitzwater's concern, and I would just like us to pump the brakes on this, get the salary information back from Evergreen, and go through our budget process and look at what the challenges we have ahead of us for sure.
Mr. Kroll?
Yeah, with all due respect, I've been talking about fund balance. You get a report every month about fund balance. I put in the ARPA fund item number 2 on 12. Item number 2 was to replace the revenue loss. I understand exactly what you're saying. Yeah, the budget, in fact, the proposals you're talking about is more than the proposal that I submitted. I think it's certainly prudent to make sure that the budget is consistent with what council's directions and desires are. But I just want to make sure it's a concern that's always been there on fund balance.
Thank you, Mr. Kroll. And while I do understand some of the concerns and the challenges that were mentioned tonight, and those challenges are very real, but I do also believe that our number one asset is our staff and our employees. And while you may be hearing some concerns from the public, Councilman, I do also think that those same concerns are going to be the expectation of service level from the city, and we need to uphold that. And it's very competitive out there, and I know that it's a very complex topic, and there's not one answer for everything, but I believe the compromise that you all came up with together is something that we should act on now and get that going here for the remainder of the budget year. And yes, we'll have some difficult budget talks. It's never easy, and we know it won't be this time, but this is something that is a priority. If it is a 5-5, I will be supporting this in favor of it. So appreciate the thought and discussion that's gotten it this far, but I do believe the time to act is now. Any other, Councilman Spencer?
So looks like we have with vacancy positions as of July 1, we have a total of $824,379. Obviously, there's some critical positions that have to be filled. Director of Finance. And when I asked for this information, I excluded anything as it relates to public safety, because I think that is one of our first priorities is making sure our public safety is staffed adequately. I mean, the public has spoken clearly on that with the sales tax passage, but there's other positions here that I think we have to ask ourselves, could we survive through attrition here, other than, some wastewater and streets folks. I think those are pretty vital. and essential staff positions as well. So I think those are some dollars that are definitely on the table. But you know, Mr. Call, you said that you're going to even dip in further through the reserve fund balance with balancing fiscal year 23 budget. And it is our reserve fund balance percentage that is not mandated by statute. That is just a recommendation as far as that number. That's not a.
Yeah, that's not statutory.
And you know, there's even some talks in the community of saying that 17% is not even enough. It should be probably closer to 20 to 22. So again, I'm just saying we have a plan in place with an agreement in spirit. I'm fully prepared to enact that, but I would just like to for sure get any financial information as it relates during our budget process and those kinds of things before we enact on it. And again, also the salary study, because I've said it once, I said it a lot of times, is I think we got one whack at this. And even with what comes back from the salary study, what do you have, what dollar amount do you have plugged in for that?
I don't know what the overall dollar amount. It's about 2% as a whatever that amounts to. It's in different funds, but like I said, I'm not sure of that number either. And the finalizing the budget for the mayor didn't happen until like 2 or 3 days ago.
Councilwoman Ward.
You know, our intent, the intent, I feel, you know, in May was to provide our employees some assistance, some help, some immediate assistance by across the board 5%, which I know there were several on the committee or the council that were supportive of that instead of going the direction that we ended up going, because the direction we ended up going has now resulted in this. And I'm sorry, because, you know, we tried to get the 5% and now we have all of these moving parts, which we knew were going to affect the fund balance. And now we're not prepared to take action. And who's suffering? So that's just comments. I'm just frustrated. I mean, again, I know a couple times said that the 5% was not meant to address anything related to the problems going on with compression. It was to help our employees because of the inflation cost. And now here we are still without doing that. And I'm done.
Well, I hope that we still can move forward tonight, and we cannot continue to fall behind. And hopefully there is enough support at the council level to move something forward. And we continue to watch our peer agencies like City of Columbia and Cole County and State of Missouri that have done something similar to what we're doing with their across-the-board pay increases and to help with inflation. Of course, we are taking a more targeted approach at the request of several council members in discussion, and understandably, I've taken extra time to get to that point. So I'm still hopeful that tonight that this could still pass. Councilman, and you have my full support, and to do that, Councilman Fitzwater and then Kemna.
Yeah, I was just going to add to my kind of expressed concerns about moving forward with it. I did want to express that I think it's critical that we address dispatchers no matter what happens tonight. I mean, we do have a critical problem there that's needs fixed immediately. So I would support that piece of it. And you know, depending on where it goes, I think we've got to figure that piece of it out.
Councilman Kemna?
I agree with Laura. I mean, I think we had a productive work session. I think we all came together and we talked about, and I think we were getting ready to move on at that point. And I think we do owe it to our employees to move on with this, and I'm going to be supporting the measure that's there. So.
Councilman Lester?
Yes, I think we need to move forward with this. It's very much needed. It's been needed for months. We really need to retain our employees. I think, given the discussion, maybe we need to replacing some revenue loss and doing something with that with respect to the fund balance and relook at some of what we have as far as ARPA funds. But I think we definitely need to move forward with this action.
Councilman Spencer?
And Councilman Ward, I share your frustration, but, you know, we had a salary study in 2016 that had a plan in place that the council at that time didn't act on, and because of restricted dollars. And we even have a tighter chokehold on the budget now, today, than we did back then. You know, as a business owner, you have to look at all your expenses and look at what you got coming in. And if they don't equate, if you don't have more coming in than what you got going out, you're not going to be in business very long. And I think that's kind of where we have to ask ourselves where we're at. You know, people have said, don't say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. You know, I like to think that all employees that the city has on staff are important, but not everyone is essential. And our public safety is essential. Our mechanics down at the garage is essential. Our street workers and wastewater staff is essential. And I'm sure I'm missing others, bus drivers that worked hard through the pandemic.
Planning and protective services, essential.
And so I just think that we have an opportunity here just to say, let the budget process start and see where we're at, because it sounds like I'm hearing that no one is really committing to making tough decisions on the budget as it relates to potentially transit or other areas of that might need to be cut. And obviously our staff is very important. But the people that always gets pushed back behind the line is the people of our residents, our taxpayers, the people that have lived here for 30 plus years, sent their kids through school, paid the property taxes, paid the sales taxes. And they want their city services. They want their roads fixed. They want their sidewalks repaired. They want the infrastructure fixed. They want their stormwater issues fixed. And I think sometimes we forget about them as well through this whole process. So I agree. I think we need to take care of our dispatchers. That is a vital service, and they are in dire straits of retaining staff. And I think we can send a message to them that we support them and we appreciate what they do for us as a community by instilling the $40,000 minimum. And then we have the ARPA funds. If we can get the ARPA funds and put those dollars in our employees' pockets, I know it may be a 1 or 2 time phase, whatever council agrees to, but I think that is something that we should be committed to as well.
And who's going to fix the stormwater and all those items that you mentioned? And please bring me 5 votes tonight. Any further discussion? Are we ready? Councilwoman Wiseman.
Mayor, at this time, I'd like to table items 2 through 7, or I guess we already have 7 moving through the works, but I'd like to go ahead and vote on one of the portion of the substitute bill. I think it's imperative that we vote on the communications operators, but I don't think that I don't think we're doing a service to the city if we vote on the rest of it tonight, knowing what the deficit is going to be coming into the budget season. And I think that we have to consider the budget and do this as a whole. I agree with Councilman Spencer. You know, we have to look at this with the salary study, and we have to be able to apply that. And we have to be able to have the funds to apply it, so that way we're not having compression issues and continuing compression issues that have just been mounting over the years. And so I'd like to go ahead and do that.
So what you're saying is only communication operators, minimum pay 40,000, nothing else for the rest of the employees?
The ARPA funds are a block for next meeting.
I have a concern with that. I do, and while I appreciate all the concerns this evening about the budget, I do think that we have ample time to work through the challenges in our budget. We know it's going to be a challenging budget time, but I believe that the damage that could be done by waiting till the budget process is complete will be greater than any of the benefit we would get. I believe we can figure it out. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can do this. We can move this forward, and we can still, I believe, look very closely and make some very, very hard and tough decisions together as a council. I think we're looking at this very separately. It's why I use that example. We're looking at it very independently, but I believe that we can collaboratively come up with budget changes to reflect the decision that's made tonight. I still have that confidence that we can do that. Even though it won't be easy, we know it won't be, but I still believe that separating this out at this time will cause us more issues in the near term when it comes to our staffing levels. And I do not want to see that fall out, especially trying to remain competitive with our other peers. So I don't know if that affects any of the decisions, but so we haven't heard from Deacon yet, and then Spencer.
I'm going to have to concur with Councilman Spencer, Councilman Weissman, and Councilman Fitzwater. The salary study is coming soon. I would hate to, I mean, we're getting in a bind. We're getting better than 80% in salaries. We can take care of the dispatchers. We can give them the $2,500 bonus, either in partial payments or all in once, however we can afford it. I really think we have to look at the whole budget before and the new salary study before we commit to the rest. That's my thought.
Councilman Spencer.
Yeah, with all due, some of us on the council has been saying it since we've been elected, that we've got financial challenges. Public transit, for one. Our overlay program is already $200,000 not being funded, and we've had to cut off projects. So I appreciate your enthusiasm and cheerleading of saying that we can come up with a compromise and make some tough decisions, but we've not done that very well in the past since I've been elected and on previous budgets. So I just think that time is of the essence to get it right and wait on the information that we need to make good financial sound decisions.
Why are you willing to do that at the expense of our employees?
Mayor, it's not at the expense of our employees, it's the expense of the budget. The money
No.
is not there.
No, the money is there. The tough decisions would have to be made to get it there, but
So
it
you're
can't
willing to
get
cut
there.
public transit. You're willing to go.
I'm willing to work through the budget cycle. I believe the fallout will be greater if we don't act now. I think that we have been working on this now for a few months, and there's an expectation, and our competitors out in the market have already done what we have not been able to do yet.
The state even rolled back some of their funding for staff. They're not doing the full implement. So, so that being said, the private sector is different than government and public service. I know we like to compare ourselves, whether we're engineers or other positions, and are competitive and want to say we want to compete against the private sector, but that's not always an accurate assessment. I say we should look at being competitive with other forms of local government, but private sector is probably always going to outpace public sector.
Well, and I'm not talking private sector. The other peers are the state of Missouri, Cole County, City of Columbia, and I think it's been evident we've lost employees to the state of Missouri in a fairly quick fashion. So I'm not talking about the private sector, although knowing that this will assist with inflation, I think we kind of lost sight of why we started the discussion in the first place.
Well, I resent the fact that you're pigeonhole me in a corner of saying I'm picking employees or I'm not picking employees. This is your last budget. You don't have to reap the consequences of what you laid out before us and what we're going to vote on. So some of us are going to have to make those tough decisions even after you leave office. So it's not a very comfortable position for us as a council to have to address some of these, but that's what we were elected to do. And that's the approach that I would like to take, is wait on the salary study, do the budget process, see where the shortfalls are, so we can make sound financial decisions. I think that's what the citizens would expect us to do.
Councilwoman Ward.
That's exactly what that's what we should have done before entertaining all of these other proposals that we did in the work study. I mean, I came away from the work study meeting, feeling enthusiastic about the plan. I really did. But again, I feared that we would be where we are right now. It seems like this isn't going to pass. Is there any way to amend what we have on the agenda to go back to 5% to address again the immediate need to address inflation like it was presented to us back in May? And because again, we have a complex plan that we can't afford, and we have no idea what the study is going to portray to us, which after that meeting last week, I was informed that a supervisor's employee would now be making more than her, due to what we came up with. And again, if we had the study where we would have more informed information, maybe we wouldn't be doing that to our different employees in the departments. So again, I'm just wondering if we can amend it to go back to the 5%, if you guys want to entertain that. Because again, we're just kicking this down the road because of the fund balance, which is, we knew it was going to cost a lot of money.
So I,
Councilman Lester?
yeah, I'm in favor of passing it as we worked out through the work session. However, I'll point out that if we did items 1 through 4, that would be within the 5%. I mean, it's a different structure than 5% across the board, but it would be within the total 5%.
So would there be any interest in doing 1 through 4? There is a motion on the table or did we haven't voted yet to approve the motion on the table, which is only communications operators, I believe. Kind of lost track of where we are even.
I think that I requested to place it all on the informal except for number 1 and go ahead and leave 1 for a vote.
And I would,
You guys seconded that.
Yeah, there's no way to do that from a procedural aspect.
no way to do what, either Lester's
To
or
put half the
Councilwoman
bill-
Wiseman's?
to put half the bill or more and act on another half. The charter doesn't provide for that. The best alternative essentially that I could think of is to do a floor motion to, I don't think we have a number of how to address just the communications operators. So we'd have to give it our best shot at what that number may look like. As for the appropriation, I think it's a little bit easy because I believe that all that money is coming from public safety sales tax. You would also do an amendment to amend Exhibit A to exclude all items except for number 1. And then, Exhibit B to exclude all items except for number 1. And then essentially direction to the city administrator to bring back a different ordinance that includes the rest of it, if you wanted to continue discussion on the rest of the plan at a future city council. But I don't think there's any way to bifurcate a bill like that and put half of it on the informal.
So would it be worth hearing from maybe department directors then to hear about what some potential repercussions could be, whether we act or not? Yes.
Thank you. So I thought we had an understanding that we wanted our math and our figures checked. So I don't understand why we don't have cost figures for each one of these parts of this pay plan. Number one, number two, number three. I mean, we just have dollar amounts that are appropriated for each employee, but we don't have cost numbers of a total cost for this program on each individual line item.
That is a true statement. You do not. There are so many moving parts to this plan that every change that you make affects other things down the road. So for example, every one of these items that are listed affects base pay. Base pay in turn also affects holiday pay, for example, for any of the public safety. So every one of these has a repercussion that feeds into more than just the base pay and the payroll taxes. So when I calculated these numbers, they were all put in to a spreadsheet to calculate total costs as we progressed across every one of the phases.
So we know, for example, 911 operators, all of everything as a group. Item, 1 through 7 on the.
It is a total cost for all of the items listed. I do not have a cost just for changing the 911 operator's base pay to $40,000.
But we have the number for 911 operators for everything that was on there. You've got the different groups for all of these.
Correct. I can tell you cost for 911 operators is for everything on the list. But I can't tell you what the cost is just for number one.
We can go through and try to figure that out. I mean, not tonight, but just because there's so many pieces.
Again, it's an exercise due to the fact that there are so many moving pieces.
And you have what we presented at the last work session, which is kind of what came forward for us to contemplate this evening. And knowing what we have on the table, that's why I mentioned that, while I can say, here's my opinion and whether people agree with it or not, of why I think this is important enough to move forward, we have not really received enough input, likely from some of our department directors or from some who are here tonight. And if I would ask for any input, and I think that it's important to hear from that perspective, because that is also, I think, influential in what council may or may not decide to do. Taking myself out of it just so that council can make a better informed decision of what may be happening in your departments or what you're seeing or how this may affect your department. I know I did see a hand in the back, and I don't know if we have an answer to a question. And
Well,
then
I just
take
want to
some
come
comments.
back on Councilmember Spencer's question on, we know we've got, you're taking the minimum from 36 to 40. If you're talking about for 911 dispatchers, you got 11 of them. So 11
know what the
times
spread is.
4,000, you want to make
But
an estimate of,
But I don't know what the spread
5.
is between those 11 positions. That was also one of the conversations that we had, was to keep the spread.
Yeah.
So I'm not comfortable providing a number based on that.
And at this time,
and it's also a public safety tax number.
Correct. All 911 was public safety.
So the impact on the general fund is 0.
Correct.
I would ask for a comment. You would
And if I can, just before that,
Yes.
I think everybody understands and appreciates the impact to employees, but there's certainly merit to the fiscal piece. Obviously, that's a big piece of what we're talking about.
Sure. There's both pieces, because when we talk about the fiscal and we get ready to do budget, we look at our priorities and make those decisions. Mr. Noah?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you all know, I'm James Noah. I'm the president of Local 671, which represents Jeff City firefighters here in Jefferson City, the capital. I'd like to talk tonight on behalf of what we're talking about as far as the salary adjustment and proposal. And I would like to do that as a representative and as a voice of every employee in the city. There is no employee in this municipality that goes unwarranted, that their job is not dire in that capacity. Along with that, we're talking about a salary adjustment, that we're talking about a salary comparison, that we had a salary comparison in 2016. They're not asking anything absurd of you. They're asking you to do a fix to adjust salary to address the compression and inflationary rate, whether you do the 5%, the proposal that Councilman Spencer has. We need to do something. We're bleeding out as a municipality, and we're just at the start of it. As we know, and I've voiced vocally, the city of Columbia adjusted their salary by 3% effective next pay period 2 weeks ago. They're doing another 4.5% across the board adjustment October 1, effective immediately. We're already competing with them as far as our employees, as far as our recruitment, and as far as our retention. We haven't seen the huge turnover in fire, but I assure you it's coming. We see municipalities like Kansas City Fire Department. They've never done a lateral transfer as far as I've been in the fire service. They're getting ready to do lateral transfers. I seen a captain of Kansas City Fire Department post that there are 130 personnel below its suppressionary effect. We're talking to personnel from St. Louis County Fire Department. They've required St. Louis County Fire Academy to get in their departments, that most of their departments are starting anywhere from $60,000 to $75,000 a year. They're getting ready to do away with that requirement. We are bleeding out as a municipality. It's not just fire. It's not just PD. We're seeing it effectively as representatives, just as the FOP seen whenever they did their salary study, but we're bleeding out as a municipality. And if we don't get ahead of it, we're going to lose dire members at an exponential rate. We haven't seen it yet, but I assure you it's coming. I have employees that are 10-year members of this department that are looking, well, I can go right down the door to Columbia Fire Department with a year and a half of service and make $250 an hour more as a 6-year employee. $2.50 an hour more as a 6-year employee. I can go right down the road as a year and a half service member and make the same pay. So I urge you all to make a decision, move forward with the decision, because I'm telling you right now, we can talk about streets. I love Jeff City. Street department, public safety, city garage, everybody does an exceptional job to keep us in service daily. But if we don't address the salary aspect of it, we're not going to have anybody to pave our streets. We're going to be outsourcing, we're going to hire out, and we're already doing it. We're going to outsource it, and we're going to pay 2 to 3 times the cost. So I urge you all tonight to make a decision. Let's move forward with it. Let's put money back in the members' pockets, the city employees' pockets, and do the right thing. Thank you.
So while I'm thinking how important it is to hear that perspective that we haven't necessarily had in the last few months of this discussion, and it has been at the council level. And while it is a balance, like Mr. Kroll just said, between employees and the fiscal piece, so maybe as I'm processing what the concerns are, and they're all valid, from Councilman Fitzwater kicking it off, saying, you know, getting into the fund balance, Councilman Spencer following that up, and then Councilwoman Wiseman, and on about that concern, and knowing that the budget is just about to be presented to me, I believe, tomorrow. So would I be able to gain enough support to move this forward if I commit to presenting those tough decisions out of my budget now, when I look at it, to say this is important enough that I would make this a priority and be able to make some adjustments to the budget that I present to you, as I'll be seeing that, so that we don't further delay and further potentially lose as our other entities. And you're correct on Columbia not only doing their initial increase, but another one. I mean, as we continue to see this, I feel strong enough about it that I don't want to let this slip through our hands when I feel that those tough budget decisions can be made without sacrificing potential services or employees. Would council be agreeable to that?
You're asking the question, how soon can you get that done?
Think I'll be presented it tomorrow, and if I commit to, I think the goal would be, I would like to get it in council's hands as soon as possible. So if I could get it into your hands by the following Monday, let's say in a week, wouldn't you say?
Takes about a week.
A week? So potentially, and of course, if Sheila could, if I get you any of my changes by, let's say, Monday, when could you have it in council?
So we could work diligently to hopefully have that by the end of the week. But again, I want to point out those would be electronic files. Anyone that's requested a paper file, I would not be able to generate the paper files and produce a book in that amount of time. But an electronic file is possible by the end of the week, beginning of the following week.
So I would commit to making it as quick a turnaround as I can on my end, and then working with staff to get it in your hands as soon as possible. I believe it's an important enough priority that we can work together and make that happen. I would absolutely commit to that.
So what are we talking about here? Putting it all on the informal now and then coming back in a week and discussing, or coming back in 2 weeks and discussing? Or what exactly are we talking about?
I would hope to move it forward tonight with a vote, and then that I could reflect on this decision then in my budget to present, taking this into account, that hopefully would pass and move forward this evening.
So like getting up to the 17%, or I guess I'm not sure what that means. Like what, I don't know what you're, I mean, I know what you do in the budget process, but I don't know what that portion looks like. I don't know what that actually means.
It will be very hard to do, but while as difficult as it is, I would like to have that chance to do that.
I'm sorry, it's been a long week, and so I'm not exactly understanding what you mean you're gonna do.
I'd say to continue to look at the budget and the fund balance piece and try to get it where I think it would need to be.
Madam Mayor,
At the 17%?
Did I hear Councilman Hensley just now
yes,
in line?
I'm sorry. I'm not sure who I cut off.
Councilman
but-
Hensley?
Yeah, thank you. And I apologize to whoever it was that I cut off. I think that the pieces that Councilwoman Wiseman just mentioned are really part of the same conversation as the salary discussion. And I appreciate your willingness to commit to what will be some deep cuts through your budget. I personally, hey, I'll say at the outset, I think that could be a good way to go. Personally, I think I'd want to see how you were proposing to make that room before finally voting on this big change. I will commit, of course, to working with you, and I don't know who on the council wouldn't make the same commitment. They can all speak for themselves, obviously. To working with you to move something forward here. I don't think it's unreasonable, though, to look at the entire package together once you've identified your cuts. So I think what was initially put on the table, if I'm tracking the last, I don't know, hour or so, correctly, was the bill sponsor's intention to place the bill on the informal. I know that there is perhaps a procedurally challenging motion to address one component of this plan. But yeah, I think that if you were going to commit to making these cuts and that we could have this next conversation in pretty short order, you know, I'll make the same commitment to work with you on that. Just would like to have a sense of where those cuts are going to come from first. Thank you.
Well, I don't see the support, I guess. So then, yeah, I don't see support. I've heard affirmative moving forward tonight from Councilwoman Ward, Councilman Kimna, Councilman Lester. So it sounds like 3 out of the 10 of you have that interest to move forward, and I have not heard from Schreiber. So we have 4 who would support and 6 who would not, unless one of the 6, I guess, takes the offer. I think part of it is time is of the essence, and that's why I mentioned that, although I understand the desire to hold off and wait. I do feel that that was kind of why we didn't wait for the budget process the first time when Mr. Kroll brought this to us in May or April or May, whenever, I know it was May for sure. Because of the other entities that were making their proposals, and not only proposing them, but had acted on them. So just time is of the essence. So I do see the continued delay, whether it's, 2 more weeks, and a lot can happen in that 2 weeks, I believe, when it comes to our employees. So that's why I feel strong enough to continue to advocate to at least try to get a split council so that I could break a tie to move it forward. And I don't know if there's any desire of any of the 6, if any one of them would be willing to do that, just because time is of the essence here.
Madam Mayor, if you did your timetable of what you said you would be committed to doing, and as far as looking at what's the procedure of us then having a special council meeting to vote on this sooner before our regular scheduled, because you should get your evergreen information within that time frame too.
Well, no, I think at the next council meeting, Evergreen has some questions that they need you to answer, and they wanted to give you an update. I don't think they're going to have their information, their report then. Part of it is they need to know what they're dealing with on this. I mean, they got to put this into effect, and other cities are changing so quick.
I guess, we've heard a little bit from, at least from the firefighters' local perspective. And I want to make sure I don't leave out, although I know it really does put staff on the spot, and I don't want to pit staff against council. Oh, Councilman Kimna?
Oh, and I know that 17% is our desired goal. I know that that's kind of an arbitrary number to some degree, correct? Because I want to say that was put in place how long ago? Like, when did they move it? I think it was at 12, initially to 17. What was the history on our number that we're trying to reach as a?
Okay, so the 17% is a guideline, and that was done since I've been here, so sometime around 2014, 2015. And we took the Governmental Finance Officers Association of a number of months and converted that to a percent. And so that's where we came up with that 17% guideline. I'm one of those who thinks it should be higher than 17%. And as you recall, during the budget times, not only do I talk about natural disasters, I talk about economic disasters like inflation. I've been talking about that ever since we started with that 17%. But it is a guideline, and there's a provision in there that if we fall below that, city administrator is supposed to make a proposal on how to build that back up. And there's different ways to do that, but none of them are easy.
Well, Mr. Kroll, as our city administrator, you brought this to us in May with the more of a simple approach, following the lead of state of Missouri, other entities that had more of the across the board inflationary increases. And I know when you brought it forward, you were looking for it to be supported and funded. I mean, it is up to us to set policy, not you, but you brought this to us because you saw a need. So I'm trying to kind of get back to the point of what that need was and why we're talking about this in the first place. I think we've sort of gotten lost in the where it is in the priority and can we fund it or not? Yes, we can fund it. We're gonna have to make some difficult decisions, but I'm back to your whole point and bringing it to us as our lead, as the city administrator, why that was important to you to bring it enough to our attention to act quickly and not wait through the budget cycle.
Well, back then, it was a reaction to what other cities were doing and what the state was doing. And it was a quick way to address retention. That was the main point, was to help retain our employees. And then also recruitment, which is why I recommended moving the minimum. That was back in April. The world has changed since then. We're closer to budget, yes. I still think that we have a need to make sure we have a competitive advantage for our employees, however you want to get there. So my budget number wouldn't have changed any. It still would have been 5% plus 3 or whatever you want to, if you don't want to use percentages, that's fine. But I think we have to remain competitive for employees for those two items that I mentioned, retention and certainly recruitment. You've addressed police, you've addressed public safety. We're in the process of addressing fire. But there's those other functions. I don't know how to answer that any better than, yeah, it's a hunk. We've every budget year, look in the budget memos that I give to you and you provide. I've got concerns about remaining competitive with employees. What are the other ones? Equipment, facilities, every year. And I know you all know this, but the salary piece is not a one-time piece. It's obviously an ongoing, it's a legacy dollar amount. So yeah, it keeps going, which is kind of your point as well. Yeah. Just to reiterate though, I do think there's a, we know we're off on salaries. Is it the same amount for all positions? No. That's part of what Evergreen's going to go through and help figure out.
Councilwoman Wiseman?
Yeah, I'd like to go ahead on the informal. I think we're really, really close, and I think that let's see what the budget cycle brings out with what you get, and then what we can work on. And I think we can do something sooner than later.
So the bill sponsor has requested that it stay on the, or that it be put on the informal. So that's it, right, Ryan? Done. Okay, informal, nothing yet, but will be now. 15, resolutions 2022-13.
A resolution approving a real estate agreement between the Housing Authority and the city.
Mr. Molman.
Thank you. This agreement would approve a conveyance of real property from the Housing Authority to the city. These properties are in the East Capitol Avenue redevelopment project area. Specifically 413, 415 East Capitol, 417 East Capitol, 419 East Capitol, 517 East Capitol, and 519 East Capitol. This has been approved by the Housing Authority at their meeting 2 weeks ago, I believe. The property, the transaction amount is $10. This is being transferred pursuant to provision of the LCRA law, which allows for transfer of property to municipalities for public purposes. The public purpose of blight clearance and redundant is a recognized public purpose under Missouri case law. And so this agreement would effectuate that transfer. This does not affect the blight clearance funding agreement that has been entered into between the city and the Housing Authority back in 2017. So the city would still be obligated to provide reimbursement to the Housing Authority of their costs of acquisition. We'll be getting that number, final number after this gets approved, because you can't calculate the number until after they've disposed of the property. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Wait a minute, wait a minute. I know we're on this resolution. Before I ask for a motion or a second for that, thanks for the description. I just feel like I'm trying so hard. I feel like sometimes I don't get the trust to move forward with something as a 7-year mayor, working very closely on something that I think we're going to regret. I think we'll regret it within the next 2 weeks. I hope that we don't. I didn't call on you, Ryan, to ask about, losing staff in your office, your very small staff that you have, and how easy it was for your staff to get a job with the state almost instantaneously. I try not to put you all on the spot as staff. I just don't feel, I just feel like I have to vent for a moment and just get that off my chest because of my concern, just very concerned and disappointed. I think I'm as disappointed in the decision as you all are disappointed in me. That we can sit here and listen to how our employees are looking at other jobs and they haven't looked before, in 10-year firefighters. And that's okay. And we're just going to wait. And like 2 more weeks is no big deal. 2 more weeks, 2 more weeks. I mean, I've been willing to say, give me the budget. Let me, please. I don't know what else I can do. Just have to get that frustration. I don't know what to do to gain the trust of council. And I clearly don't have it. So my apologies to our employees. I'm doing the best I can. I know you all are, but please don't give up. I really have hope that what council's really saying is that in 2 weeks, we're going to figure this out, right? I mean, can somebody tell me in 2 weeks, we're going to do something?
We have to be dependent on information that staff, city administrator, finance, you as leader of this council give us. But once we get that information, I'm committed to move this bill forward. I worked hours. I probably got 40 hours in this proposal. So you're not the only one sacrificing your time. So you're trying to pit yourself against this council. That's not leadership, Mayor. That is not leadership.
And I'm confused after having a work session devoted to this topic, clearly outlining the scenario that's on the table, that at the work session, it was decided rather than vote at the work session, it would be brought to the
It's
council
my
meeting.
understanding, we don't vote at work sessions.
Right, correct, that we would bring it to this council meeting. So that's where I'm still confused, because after the work session, it was my understanding after listening.
And it wasn't a
to
work
that.
session. As our city attorney said, it was a session.
A work session is a special city council meeting, correct?
The meeting last week was a special session in which legislation was considered.
Yeah, it could have been, but we decided not to, correct?
No action was taken on.
Could have
Well,
been, yeah,
yeah,
but
no
decided,
final action was taken.
which
on
was
the
fine
bill
to
that
bring it
was
to the
on
council
agenda.
meeting.
No, it's very frustrating because this has been months and we've had this need for months. In the work session, everybody seemed to be in agreement. And yet here we are and we're doing nothing. So.
Well, I usually do better than this. I usually feel that I don't show my frustration. I don't usually show it. I can't help it this time. And I do not want, I feel that reflection on me as a leader of the city is that I do believe in our employees. And I really feel strongly that even though it may not appear with the conversation, I know that council does too. I know that staff is priority. I also understand the budgetary constraints. So I guess what I'm just saying is that please, to staff, to give us the time that council needs to make this best decision and not to give up on us in the next couple of weeks, because I really feel that And though I know we been saying this, that's why I feel the need to say it. I feel that I can't quite figure out why I couldn't lead through this a little better. So, but it's not done. It's still on the informal. So tell me in 2 weeks, we're going to figure this out. So we're on Resolution 2022-13. Ryan gave us the description. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Spicer. Ward.
Aye.
Wiseman.
Aye.
Deacon.
Aye.
Fitzwater.
Aye.
Hensley. Timna.
Aye.
Lester.
Aye.
Schreiber.
Aye.
Spencer.
Aye.
Resolution passes. On this particular resolution, Ryan, and you could maybe provide this at some point, I was asked what the next steps are for this. That was brought to my attention. What does this mean?
Sure. So now that we are in possession of the property, we can use some grant funding available to do the structural assessments. So that'll be the next step on these pieces of property to do the structural assessments. I believe that there is a deadline of August 31st to get that particular set of grant money spent. So we will work with our selected vendor to get those done rapidly as possible. So whether or not they'll be brought as a package of all the structural assessments, or if we're going to have some spaced out, I think it has yet to be determined. But once the structural assessments, then the city council will have the decision on whether or not to proceed with demolition on any particular piece of property, or to go to the interested parties process that's been previously outlined. So it's kind of a general outline of what we're looking at.
Okay, thank you. Resolution 2022-14.
A resolution authorizing the city of Jefferson to apply for the Transportation Alternatives Program grant.
Mr. Marash.
Thank you. And just kind of in general, the next two resolutions deal with the same topic, but they're both TAP grant resolutions, and that TAP stands for Transportation Alternative Program Grant, administered by MoDOT. And so what staff does is go through the criteria of these type grants and then try to select projects that would be competitive. This is a competitive process with other communities. And so we've come up with a couple here, and we also try to do a range of costs. A lot of times, if there's a certain amount of dollars allocated to this program, it's good to have a range of costs. So we come up with two, the first one being for improved crosswalks on the Greenway system across Southwest Boulevard, and the second location is Lafayette Street, where the Greenway crosses. We're hopeful to apply for a grant for $250,000 for these two projects, and match those out of both some potentially parks funds as well as half-cent CIP. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions or a motion to approve?
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Ward.
Aye.
Wiseman.
Aye.
Deacon.
Aye.
Fitzwater.
Aye.
Hensley. Timna.
Aye.
Lester.
Aye.
Schreiber.
Aye.
Spencer.
Aye.
Spicer.
Resolution passes. 22-15.
A resolution authorizing the city of Jefferson to apply for the Transportation Alternatives Program grant.
Mr. Marash.
Thank you. And this is extension essentially of a greenway and a crossing that would complete a loop from the Edgewood to Capitalist City High School. You might recall that other grants have extended the greenway around under 179, very popular stretch of greenway. So we work closely with Parks to look at this project, and we do get a lot of concerns about the crossing at Edgewood, so this would include that as well. But again, this is going for the maximum grant amount, $500,000, and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or a motion to approve?
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Wiseman.
Aye.
Deacon.
Aye.
Fitzwater.
Aye.
Hensley. Timna.
Aye.
Lester.
Aye.
Schreiber.
Aye.
Spencer.
Aye.
Spicer. Ward.
Aye.
Resolution passes. Item 16, we have no presentations. Item 17, any council and staff presentation, discussion on presentation topics. Item 18, any new business?
I would
Councilman
like to-
Deacon?
Where are we with the no fares moratorium for 6 months? Evidently, the Transportation Committee did not meet, but that's just an advisory committee. We're the governing board. They're not set by statute. We throw $7 million ARPA funding. It's not our money, it's taxpayers' money. We got millions upon millions to go for city services that the taxpayers pay for. We're just asking $30,000-$40,000 to give back to the taxpayers. They don't get anything. They're not even getting roads anymore. We could help our citizens, the working people. They may use it. The people that, a number of people up at Save-A-Lot would love to be able to have the groceries going up and down the road. Samaritan Center people are walking. It'd be the nice cooling shelter for the people, the homeless. And the ones over at the Dooley Towers, a number of guys I talked to say they'd love to get a part-time job. They just had transportation. They need help now. I mean, high-priced gas. We balked, we can't spend $40,000 on the citizens. My goodness, they give us millions upon millions and ask nothing in return. I don't know how to, it's not a promotion, nothing, no gimmick. Just give something back to the citizens, especially with, well, it came down to $4.75 or so a gallon. Can I just make a motion now?
I don't think you need a motion. I think all you do is request to put it on the agenda for the next
Well,
meeting.
then,
Is
that's
that,
another 2 weeks. And then
Oh.
it'll be three
oh,
weeks.
never mind. Can he make a motion now, Ryan? Mr. Molman?
We're paying the employees. I mean, we can't even give anything back to them.
Yeah.
The people are paying the salaries.
I don't think this is a subject that could just be brought off on new business without appropriate sunshine notice. So,
Are you sure?
yeah, that's
If he wants to
my,
make a motion, can we please let him make the motion?
Well,
he can make the
Anyway.
motion, but I would advise taking the action because I don't think that there's been an appropriate sunshine notice for the city council to take action on. I think it would be a voidable act.
Councilman Kemna?
I mean,
Well, only because I apologize to the citizens. I would have said, no, it doesn't have to go to the committee. They don't have an authority over us. The only people that we cannot overrule is Board of Adjustment. The rest of it, we have control of all of them. So that was just smoke and mirrors, I think, just didn't want to pass it through. If it is a sunshine, yes, I'll go through procedure. My goodness, that was 2 weeks. Now another 2 weeks, and then the number of readings. Here it's going to be the end of summer. These kids could be joying our parks back and forth. They'd be going, take the heat off their parents driving them places. But yeah, yeah.
You're sure Councilman Deacon can't do this? Is that right, Ryan?
If
You're
it's-
sure? I mean, if he makes the motion and council acts on it, then what? It's voidable? I mean, if he
Yes,
wants to do it
yes.
that bad?
So
Let him-
what state law says is that any action taken in violation of the sunshine law is void. It has no effect.
Is it? Okay.
And I do not believe that a motion of this type is actionable without appropriate notice.
Okay. So do you still want to make your motion or not?
Well, no, I mean, why make a fool of myself when they just through government tape? That's why the citizens said, what is the city doing? And I mean, there's a lot of people that say, yeah, maybe my kids would like to ride. I don't have to take them to the park, but no. And I thought for sure we'd have that committee would said, send it forward to it. But here I saw on the agenda, nothing done.
Councilman-
You're frustrated, Mayor. The council's frustrated. We can't get anything for the citizens.
I'm not frustrated. You know how I feel about it. I thought it was not necessary. And I said, we have a transit advisory committee. I don't know why their meeting was canceled. Why don't you talk to their liaison and get it on their agenda? Councilman Fitzwater?
I was just going to follow up the comments from Councilman Kim. The action that was taken was to send it to the Transit Committee. Just talking to Mr. Marash, they only meet quarterly. They are a Citizens Committee, but that was the direction that the council took. And then for that to go to Public Works, and I think, I don't want to put words in Mr. Marash's mouth, but he recommended that process because we got outside of just in the fairs, we were talking about a marketing plan and some other things. The feelings were that needed to go through somebody. So, I mean, I don't think they meet
Yeah,
emergency meetings, so I think it was just the intention. Timing is horrible. I mean, there was support to do both ways, but the recommendation was to send it to this group, and I think we'll let the process play out.
And just so everyone is aware, we actually have our transit folks going back through the last couple studies, and because it did seem to me anyway, devolve into a promotional discussion. And so a lot of that has been done in the past, and we can kind of compare those over, multiple year gaps, and the same trends would more than likely apply. So that's why we took that, and we were actually hopefully have it on an agenda just to have that comparison for the council committee next Thursday was the intent, but we'll still put it back onto the transit committee. Well, yeah, both. I meant just the comparison of the old study. So everybody has a kind of a basis, a starting point at the committee level anyway.
Did Mr. Marash answer your question, Councilman Deacon?
It did. Still reminds me of the old Saturday Night Live and a little bit of Portlandia. It just walk in circles and never get off the roundabout.
All right, so we're still on new business. Councilman Spencer.
This is a question for, you give us an update on the redistricting. Some of us were.
Sure. So plaintiffs filed post-trial brief. That was Friday. So we got that in. The city has about 3 weeks to respond to that, and then the court will make its decision. So no telling how quickly a court will act, but I would say late summer, early fall, we would have some sort of decision.
Thank you.
That is no more than a guess.
Thank you.
Any other new business? All right, item 19, need a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Okay, so we had a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Well,
We I'm sorry, we need to read the
in.
motion.
Yeah.
Pursuant to section 610.021 of the revised statute of Missouri, the chair will entertain a motion to go into closed session to discuss the following: operational guidelines, policies, and specific response plan developed, adopted, or maintained by any public agency responsible for law enforcement, public safety, first response, or public health, section 610.021.18. We had a motion and second. Roll call, please.
Deacon. Fitzwater.
Aye.
Hensley. Himna.
Aye.
Lester.
Aye.
Schreiber.
Aye.
Spencer.
Aye.
Spicer.
Aye.
Ward. Wiseman.
Aye.
Okay, let's just stay in here and we'll knock it out very quickly. City staff, if our public safety personnel, department directors, and IT in the back will stay. All right, so anyone, well, I guess I think, are we all just staff here? Oh, just unstream us, but it'll be very quick.